That is the danger with pointing your mirrors at each other, kids. Don't do it. Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to another video here on my channel. Hope you guys are doing well. Listen, I know it's taken a while to get part 2 out. In my defense, it's like triple the length of part 1. And I read it twice in order to do the script for this, because I was doing it in tandem. I was scripting and reading at the same time, and it was so interesting that I didn't want to keep doing that. So I read it completely and then did the script. So I had to read it twice, okay? It takes a while, but we're here. This is the entirety of part 2. It is the bulk of the book is part 2, okay? Like this huge section in the middle is part 2. So we're gonna get into all of that today. I'm gonna be real with you. It's the 26th and I have not finished the book because I got about a third of the way through part 3 and then just all of it hit and I was like, you know what? I need a break. So this book was supposed to be my break. Had to take a break from it because Jesus Christ, it got rough. And I also, for anybody who doesn't know, if you're new to the channel or anything, I live in Chicago. So there's a lot going on in a lot of the cities in the United States right now, and Chicago is one of them. And it's not been fun. So, you know, mentally needed a break from the war book. I would love to know what else you guys have been reading. I'm on kind of an audiobook kick right now. I'm in the middle of Divine Rivals because I can listen for like my 7-hour shift at work, which is so nice. So I'm flying through so many audiobooks for my TBR, so that's been really great. Also, what are we watching this Halloween? Okay, I'm about to rewatch American Horror Story, at least my favorite seasons. Just watched episode 5 of Mayor of Easttown. As an Evan Peters girly, you know, I'm not surprised, but I am deeply sad. Like, anyway, yeah, let's get into it. Part 2 is all of Helena's flashbacks. We're going all the way 4 years in the past, back to 1785. It's the eve of the solstice in December, and they're having a party at Lila's parents' house. Helena feels really awkward and doesn't want to go because at this point, the war's been going on for a couple years, and she is being pulled away from Luke and kind of into like the role that we see her in later on, but she feels like she's obligated to him as his friend to go anyway, so she makes an appearance just to maybe make him happy, but they're not really friends anymore on her end. The signs of the war are really showing, so like the spiced wine is sour, there's not a lot of food, they are like laughing and telling stories and stuff, but everybody just seems really run down. We meet Sebastian, who is Lila's like uncle, and I really liked him. I loved his character introduction quotes. It says, he'd been Principate Apollo's paladin primary, among other things. And now, in reserve, he always had a sort of tragic alertness about him, like a dog waiting for its master to return. Loved that. So like I said, Helen is really uncomfortable, and it's worse because she can't tell Luke what's going on and he doesn't understand. So he thinks she's pulling away, maybe because she's overworked or she's tired or she doesn't like the war, and he doesn't realize the depth of everything going on around her, and she's not in a position where she can tell him because she feels like any more weight that she puts on him is unfair because he already struggles with the weight of like his paladins fighting for him and the war in general and all the death already feels like it's his fault, so she doesn't want to add to that. We learn here too that like the reason why Luke's aunt Ilva is keeping him like separate from her is because she's worried that because Helena is a Vivimancer and like not of the faith completely, even though she is, like she took the vows, she did everything they told her to do, it's still not good enough because she's technically an immigrant with bad evil powers. So if they see him close to her, they worry that the optics of it will make the rest of the resistance think that he prioritizes her, which if you'll remember is like exactly what the guild families and the necromancers are like upset about. Right? They think that the holdfasts like give too much to the immigrant families and then keep the guild families down because of it. So also on the resistance side, they're worried about those guild families feeling the same way because everybody's racist. It's on both sides of the war. Lila has recently lost her leg. I can't remember if we talked about that in part 1, but she had an amputated leg and she wears a prosthetic because they have really cool like metal prosthetics in this world. And so she had one of those, and when Kane brought her body back to the outpost, her leg was missing. So she was just like a statue with one leg at the outpost. So they're all at the party and Lila is being like really helpful, which is not normally how she is. She's like playing with the children and getting people refills and trying to just prove that she's still worthy of, you know, being kept around and fighting again, because she wants to be sent back out with Luke, even though it's definitely too early for that to happen. They just don't like to be separated. While she's like in the other room entertaining the children, we hear a story about Orion Holdfast and how he defeated the necromancer in that first war. The way she tells it, they were fighting and fighting and fighting, and then at the very last second, Orion was losing and the resistance in that timeline was losing. And then there was this great magical fire that he was able to summon, like a huge miracle fire, and he burned all the necromancers all at once, and that holy fire cleansed the land, and then they won the war. Helena visits with Titus, who, remember, is Soren and Lila's dad. She wants to check on him, but his brain is the same. This is when we learn that she healed him when he was injured, but like they told us in part 1, the way she remapped his brain and everything, yes, she regenerated all the tissue, but she didn't fix his consciousness, so he's still trapped in the mind of like a little kid in his body. She doesn't know if she'll ever be able to reverse the damage, but she is sort of trying off and on. It's definitely not like her highest priority, but it's something that she feels really guilty about, and every time she sees him, she checks to see if he's progressing at all, but it never seems to get any better. His wife, Rhea, is so sweet. I just love her. She really appreciates that Helena takes so much time trying to fix him. She understands that it can't be more of a priority, and whatever help she can offer, she wants. Also, she made them all sweaters for Christmas with their initials on them, which is like so adorable. And you know, when did she have time to do that in the middle of the war? She did it because she's a good mom. I also liked that it was a detail pointing out that she's an immigrant just like Helena. So they have a little bit of a bond where like they both came to the city, and Rhea ended up with one of the most prominent guild families, right? And then Helena showed up and became best friends with Luke. This is when we first hear about people in the resistance thinking about running away to other countries, specifically Novus. There's where Helena's from, and then there's Novus. There's Hevgos or Havgos, and that place they're worried about because they think they're going to work with the necromancers, but Novus at least is supposed to be a reasonably safe place. They're just not on either side. They're sort of staying neutral. But Rhea is afraid to go because she worries that they'll be too far for Helena to give Titus a cure, and she also doesn't want to leave the twins. Helena tries to sneak out after this, but Luke catches her, and he sort of, you know, fabricates this moment where he like corners her at the front door, and then Soren like kind of keeps guard to make sure nobody interrupts them, and then Lila is telling the story about Orion in this moment, so everybody like orchestrates this little miracle for Luke so he can have a few stolen moments with Helena, because normally anywhere he's at, everybody wants to be around him talking to him at all times, because remember, he's really, really magnetic. He's got like a lot of like charisma. He's powerful, but more importantly, like his personality draws people in. Luke is feeling really, really, really defeated. The war has been dragging on. It's gone on way longer than he thought it would, and he doesn't understand why the gods aren't stepping in to offer him a miracle the way that they did with Orion. So it's making him feel like his faith isn't strong enough, and if he just believed in them more and believed that they would help, then maybe they finally would. I really liked this one line about him because it made him feel more real in comparison to this sort of like really intense, obsessively like inflated version of him that Helena had in part 1. He was just sort of like this weird golden god of a boy to her in part 1, and she couldn't see his flaws at all or even like admit them to herself. It was like she literally saw him as perfect. But in this moment, she says, everyone was always watching, waiting for him to intuitively manifest a miracle. Luke's sense of failure ran through him like a fault line, waiting to rupture. Every death and every scar that Lila and Soren bore were adding to it. So again, the weight of responsibility on his shoulders is really intense, and then he sort of masks it by being this like joyful golden person, but he's so sad. He's also really worried about Lila, which this is when it starts to become clear that there's probably something more going on with the two of them, but we don't really know for sure yet. Like, nobody's ever said out loud that Luke and Lila are in love with each other. Well, they're definitely in love with each other. Probably definitely not a good idea for her to be his primary paladin, because neither one of them is objective about the other. Helena tries to comfort him, but she ends up saying that if the gods can't see how hard he's trying, then they must be blind. And he immediately like snaps at her and is like, that's not helping. Like, you don't understand, you know, you just don't get it. And so all of that good stuff I just said about him, we're also confronted with the fact that just like everybody else, he still kind of sees her as an immigrant girl. And he's like, you just don't get it. You don't get our religion because it's not exactly like your religion, and you just don't understand how we do things here. We spend some time with Helena in the hospital, which is nice to see her working, but we are seeing the worst of the war with her. Like, she is getting all of the worst injuries, and she channels herself into saving people. So part of her role as like the head resistance healer is that she is quite literally like giving her vitality and her life to bring back the worst of the injuries, so that most of the time they're able to heal them, and it just takes a while. If she gets somebody with life-threatening stuff going on, she just gives a little bit of her soul essentially into them, and then they pop back to life and she's able to heal them completely. Matron Pace is like the head of the hospital, and she's thankfully a really nice lady. So she has Helena's back. She's constantly looking out for her, making sure she doesn't burn herself out. They're all overworked, right? But they do what they can to look after each other. Once the worst of this next battle has happened and they've healed everybody that they can heal, Helena definitely needs to go take a nap and rest, but she just can't stop working, so she ends up going to a council meeting instead. We meet the Council of Five. So Luke is not there, but his seat is like the head seat, but he's almost never at these meetings. His aunt Ilva is the one that acts as his steward because she's the last living member of his family. Falcon Mateus is like the head of the church, and he sucks. I hate that man. He's the one that made Helena take the vows, that made her get sterilized. He's the one that hates her so much. He just all around awful man. General Althorn is in charge of the combat, and then Crowther is like essentially the spy master. So she knows that he sort of handles the prisoners and the torturing and all of that, but nobody really talks about what he does. He's also technically a foreigner, so he's high up, he's on the Council of Five and everything, but there's like weirdness with him where not everybody trusts him completely. Doesn't help that he's the torturer as well, but there's like layers to it, if you get me. None of them really like Helena for everything we've talked about already, you know, the prejudices and things like that. So she's uncomfy at the meeting, but she knows that she needs to be there for the hospital. So she gives the numbers of this most recent battle and the casualties and everything like that. And it's bad, like exceptionally bad. They're all stunned because it's always this bad, right? Like they just keep losing people constantly. And so she gives the numbers, they're all stunned, and then they ask like, oh, well, is that like projected, or like, do you think it'll go up or go down? Because, you know, these are like, you know, these numbers change. And she's immediately like, yeah, it's gonna go up. We're gonna lose more people. Like, what's not clicking? What's not clicking, guys? And then they try to dismiss her, but she insists on speaking about a proposal that she submitted that they ignored. The proposal was to start asking the resistance fighters if they want to donate their bodies to be brought back by necromancy to keep fighting once they've been killed, because they're already dead. So if they bring them back and then they die again, they could just burn their bodies then. But remember, the way the faith looks at it, if the body is not immediately burned, the longer that the soul is trapped inside the flesh, the higher the chances are that things are going to get corrupted. So everybody freaks out. Like, this meeting is like with the Council of Four because Luke's not there, but there's other people in attendance. So people are listening to this unfold. Everybody freaks out. Mateus yells at her and is like, I knew this was a bad idea. Like, I told you she was crazy. Like, we knew this was going to happen. Ilva is like, okay, up, everybody be quiet. Clearly she's a little deranged from what she went through today healing everybody. So let's just strike that from the record. We're gonna call it temporary insanity, and Helena is never gonna come back into this room again. She's gonna send Matron Paste from now on, and that's the end of that. We're not using necromancy. Get out. The striking from the record thing, Helena knows immediately, is not done for her benefit. They don't care about her reputation. They already don't trust her, and this just sort of proves their point in their eyes. It's so that Luke doesn't find out, because everybody is so worried about him. Ilva is like, everything she does is to like protect Luke, keep Luke perfect, make sure Luke is happy, and Helena is exhausted hiding all this shit from him, when at the end of the day, maybe he would say yes. Like, it's ridiculous. They're gonna lose because they refuse to take like the extreme measures. The necromancers are doing anything and everything to win, right? Like, they don't care. And the resistance fighters are like, we have to stay good and pure. And if we stay good and pure, then for surezies we'll win. But they're not good and pure. They're also bad people sometimes. It's a mess. She has a bit of a panic attack when she leaves the room and sort of immediately starts crashing out in the hallway. Soren, thankfully, is there. I say thankfully, very loosely. But he gets her and is like, hey girlie, not here, Takes her to like a private area and then lets her cry and freak out. He doesn't hold her or anything, but he is comforting. Like, they are pretty good friends. And so him being there and just like letting her cry and freak out is good enough for her. He's like, baby girl, you had to know that they weren't gonna say yes to that. Like, what were you thinking? Why did you even take that risk? And she says that she knows, but it's ridiculous that no one will listen to her. They don't have any other options, and they're not winning the war. They argue about the gods because he also thinks that she doesn't have good enough faith. She points out that she has no reason to, because they've taken everything from her. So at this point, why would she keep holding on to hope? So once again, in this moment with Soren, we think he's being nice and kind to her and helping her, but it turns out that because he's back, Luke is back, and he just didn't want Luke to see her like that. So he was just making sure she didn't go tell Luke what happened. He tells her that the battle that was so horrible and that they lost so many people at was actually a victory. So it was a good thing, and Luke is really happy about it. And he's like, please don't take that from him. And she says that she won't, which means now Luke can't know how scarred she is from dealing with all the death that was his fault, kind of, because he's in charge of the battles, right? Soren just leaves her there. And she ends up falling asleep in the hallway because, remember, she's exhausted from how hard she's been working. Ilva finds her there and is like, let's go to my office. Let's have a little chat. We learn here that she's a lapse, which means that her parents had magic, but she does not. And in such a high-ranking guild family, you would kind of assume that they would keep it quiet and pretend like she either didn't exist at all or had magic but didn't use it very often, you know, whatever. They would keep it hush-hush, but they didn't. Ilva was like raised just like everybody else. She had just as many family resources used on her, and she also like had the prominent positions in the family, which now, granted, she is steward because she's the last one left, but Apollo liked her as well, and she was high ranking with him when he was the one in charge. Helena saw all of this in the beginning and initially assumed that it would mean that they could be close to each other and she could trust her, but no. Ilva is just as cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as the rest. Crowther is waiting in the office when they get there, and they explain that they have a new offer for her because she's right. They are losing the war. They tell her that Kane Farron, who is her old academic rival from school and the one who killed Apollo, they know all of that right off the bat, right? Has offered to spy for the resistance. He's saying that it's in order to avenge his mother, but Crowther didn't believe that because his mother died of a heart attack. So it's like, what does her death have to do with the war, my guy? So he pushed him a little bit more and was like, what do you really want? And Kane, for whatever reason, was like, give me Helena now and after the war, and I'll do whatever you want. Helena is so confused. She's like, Kane and I never even spoke to each other. Like, maybe one or two words here and there. Yes, we were competing in terms of grades, but like, It was nonverbal. We just knew we were the smartest ones in school. We didn't talk about it. He hated me. Crowther is like real annoying and creepy about it, right? But Ylva, for the first time ever, seems upset. And this is what makes Helena realize, oh my God, this is like a real thing. Like Ylva is concerned that this may be asking me for too much because I would be giving myself to this random scary necromancer man who could theoretically do anything to me. And they give her like 24 hours to think about it. And she's like, oh, I never get time to consider my options. That means my options are bad. They're as bleak and depressing as I'm beginning to realize they are. While she's sitting there sort of spiraling and trying to take it all in and trying to weigh her options, she realizes that she really doesn't have any, because at the end of the day, she told Luke she would do whatever it took for him. She swore the vows to Luke and his family and the Resistance and the Eternal Flame. And now she's gonna do whatever it takes. So she says yes. From here on out, she'll be meeting with Kane twice a week to gather his information, send anything back and forth that they need, and that's all she knows. On her way back to her room, she does run into Luke, and like instantly, he knows something's wrong with her, okay? Because he is a good friend. So he sees her, takes one look at her, and is like, whoa, girl, what happened? She lies and tries to act like everything's fine. He assumes that it was probably, you know, the destruction in the hospital. And so he's like, you are so overworked. Like, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? And keep in mind, he just came back from the battle, right? So like, he's also exhausted, but he's checking on her and trying to make sure she's okay. Also asking if she wants to come and hang out. She wants to desperately because he's in a good mood, and she hasn't seen him in a good mood in so long, and it would be so comforting for her to spend time around him while he feels that way. But over his shoulder, Soren shakes his head at her because everybody kind of knows that she can't handle lying to Luke. That's one of the reasons why she stays away from him, because at some point she would crack if she tried to be around him too often. So she breaks his heart and is like, yeah, I can't, I'm exhausted. And Soren is like, look at her, she's so tired, let her take a nap, she needs to go to bed. So Luke gives in because he doesn't want to hurt her any more than she already is hurt. And he's like, okay, but like next time, all right? Like, I really miss you, and like next time we have to do something. And she agrees to the next time promise. We also learn from Luke about the lithium devices that keep the Undying alive. So the Resistance discovered that you could rip them out and then they die. Up until this point, they thought you had to either sever the head or burn them so hot that they couldn't regenerate inside the flames. The problem with the burning is that once the Undying are on fire, they just run into the Resistance lines to burn as many other people as possible, which is why Helena treats so many burn patients. While she gets cleaned up for bed, she spends some time sort of like meditating over her Suncrest necklace, which is the Holdfast family symbol. It was given to her by Ylva the day that she swore her vows, which again is why she thought they were going to be closer than they were. She kind of looked up to Ylva, and then all of that got ruined very quickly. Luke has no idea about the things she gave up in order to take the position as the healer, and she never told him because she doesn't want to add more to what he's going through. This is such a character trait for her, where she just bottles and bottles and bottles and has no one to talk to because her father is gone. And then because Luke is not able to be her best friend anymore, she sort of lost access to Lila and Soren, who were her other best friends. So there's really nobody in the entirety of the Resistance who she feels close to, who she can confide in. Everybody is tainted one way or another. So you can see how the isolation she's already in would make her like a prime target for somebody who would maybe be excited to use that to his advantage. That's all I'm gonna say about that. She doesn't get much sleep because she has been giving out so much of her vitality, and her body hurts, like her hands especially. That's fairly normal for alchemists to have kind of like arthritis-y, you know, hand issues because they're constantly making symbols and stuff like that while they're casting. I haven't seen like fan art or anything yet. If you guys have seen some good ones of actual like casting inside the world, send it to me because I would love to see it. But I've been envisioning sort of like the Doctor Strange-esque movements. And honestly, the way it looks I don't know if it's supposed to project or anything, or if it's all supposed to be invisible, but I've been kind of picturing like the Doctor Strange symbols. She tries to go to work so that she can like give herself something to think about that's not the impending doom of meeting with Kane for the first time, but they gave her days off at the hospital because of her episode at the meeting. Whatever. So then instead she throws herself into other tasks and starts doing inventory so that she can try to work on something. She runs into Crowther, and we find out here that he fought in the Crusades. So the Eternal Flame Faith had crusades. I don't like that. He also has a paralyzed right arm that he wears like braced to his body at all times, so that will be important later. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about him. They meet to discuss Farron because he wants to sort of dump all of the knowledge that he's gathered about the family onto her so that she can go into the first meeting as well prepared as possible. So they were one of the early Common Guild families, and they're in the Iron Guild. They're older than the city. Like, their people have been in the area of Palladia forever. They owned all the iron mines, and because they all have like the steel resonance for the most, they figured out how to make the industrialized steel, and then that is basically what built the city. So the Holdfasts were like politically and religiously in charge, but then the Farrons are pretty much to thank for all of the infrastructure in the city. And that's how they rose so high in the ranks and became so wealthy. Crowther reveals that he was Kane's academic advisor in school, and he describes him as a remarkable liar and impersonal student who hated the institution and was rarely ever more than minimally cordial with him. He explains that he believes all the members of the family to be very, very ambitious. This is their symbol for their family crest. Typically, this would be a snake, right? But they chose the dragon so that the wings could help look like the iron symbol. And using a dragon like this sort of ties them to myths and magic of the old world. So sort of implying that they should be on the level with that the Holdfasts are on. Crowther himself can see that, like, arguably they are just as important as the Holdfasts, right? Because yes, the Holdfasts like brought the society together, but the Farrons built all of the shit that they live in. And so it makes perfect sense that they jump ship to work with Morrow because they think they deserve more than what they've been given underneath the Holdfast reign. He does think that Kane will ultimately betray them because he's out for himself at the end of the day, right? So he's gonna work for us until it doesn't make sense to work for us anymore, and then he'll go right back over to Morrow, turn ship on us, and we'll probably have to kill him. But because of his vanity and the fact that he wants to be the best there ever was, Crowther's like, we can use that to our advantage and he'll be an amazing spy. He's the one that told them about the Undying having the devices in their chest, which, if he's an Undying, means he gave them the means to kill him. Crazy work. She's been understandably very worried about the things that Kane could potentially do to her, since she has essentially sold herself to him. That's what's happening. She is giving herself to him now and after the war for whatever purpose he may want. When she voices her fear of risking their only healer for this, Crowther shoots it down and is like, girl, you're not that special. We do not care about you that much, okay? We're already handling replacements for you, so don't worry about it. We'll survive if he kills you. It's not that big of a deal. But it is useful that Farron is so obsessed with her, so he's expecting Helena to go in there and use her vivimancy skills to basically manipulate and mold Farron into her little minion before he can try to do that to her. Crowther doesn't know what he's gonna do to her, right? He's just like, he wants you for whatever reason, so own it. Make him want you. And Helena's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not how vivimancy works. I can't just mess with his head and manipulate him into liking me more. I can't do that. That's not how it works. And Crowther's like, well, you better get with the program and figure out how to do it, because either you go in there and you're his victim, or you go in there and he's your target. Take your pick, girl. She spends some more time after this researching Farron and his family a little bit more, and also looking into if it's possible to use her vivimancy like that. She feels really uncomfortable that it was even an idea that Crowther had, because this is why people fear her power, right? Everybody assumes that this is how Vivimency works, and that's why it's corrupt and evil. And she's like, but now all of a sudden, you guys want me to do it because it would be useful. That seems super unfair. She meets Farron for the first time at the outpost, which, if you'll remember, is like an old factory space that is kind of neutral. Like, both sides just use it, but it's not functioning enough for anybody to like claim it and actually like keep it secure. So most of the time it's empty and just run down. When he opens the door to greet her in this little like, the first room that they go into is like mostly nothing. It's like this weird shack-esque space, and there's like a table and chair, and that's like it in the whole room. And when she sees him, he looks like his picture from the newspaper when he killed Apollo, which is when they were 16 years old. Now keep in mind, she's early 20s at this point, so she's like, hello? Why do you look like a boy? She knows he's high up in the army because his uniform is like a darker gray shade, and the higher up they go from like a light gray to like black once they're all the way up highest ranking. So he's like dark gray range. She knows how old he is. He's supposed to be right around her age, and yet 16-year-old child standing in front of her. So she's so even more confused. She's like, what's going on? Are you dead? Are you an undying? Huh? I fear she probably should have expected that. Like, honest to God, she should have expected that, but maybe she just wasn't expecting him to have been changed so young. I don't know why nobody told her. Somebody should have told her that she was walking into a room with a child. Like, I don't know why Crowther didn't tell her. Like, that feels like you're imparting all of this info about his family, and you don't think to say, by the way, it looks like he was turned, way back in school age days, so when you see him, he'll be a child. Good luck. It's super unsettling though, and she realizes how silly it is that she spent all this time worrying about what he would do, and it had never occurred to her that he would be young. And so now there's like, his aura is wrong, because it's like he has all this power. He's very his power is like very intense and scary. So his aura is like scary, rage-filled man, but then he looks like a child. I can't, it's so funny. Him having the baby, it just makes all these first meetings so much funnier because she's so scared of him and he's a little boy. I can't stress that enough. It made me think of like demented Peter Pan from Once Upon a Time. That's the energy, okay? Just rabid. They discuss the terms, and he makes her swear out loud that she will be his now and after the war. And he's like enjoying it. Like it's like fun for him to make her say that. She makes him promise that he won't do anything to her until after the war that could impede her work for the resistance. So he can't hurt her in ways that she can't fix because she needs to be able to go back to the hospital and do her damn job. He taunts her here by being like, oh, that's fine, we'll save the real fun for later. But then he sort of immediately is like, you know, I said that I wanted you willing, and you don't seem very willing to me. So I guess I'm not gonna touch you yet. Cracks are already forming. Okay, the evil boy persona is like, he maintains it for like 5-minute increments, and then he breaks, and then he puts it back on. It's like the mask, it's slipping already. It's like, baby, you just met her. You just met her. You can't pretend a little better than that. He continues like teasing her and taunting her and being creepy. And then he's like he's trying to see like how far she'll go to get the info that he may or may not have that day. And finally he's like, why don't you just kiss me? Just kiss me like you mean it. And then we'll see how much I feel like sharing with you. And she's like, that's all you want? Like, it like shocks her. She's like, of all the things, for sure. And so she like goes up to him and kisses him, but takes the time to like map him with her resonance. So I think she like holds his face or like the back of his neck or something so that she can touch his skin, and uses her resonance to like look at him basically. And she's fascinated because, again, 16, right? So he looks like a child, but his energy is wrong. Like, something is not correct with his body. He's dead, but he's not dead. Like, he's technically alive, but he's not alive. So it's like, she's never touched an undying before. And she's like, this is the strangest thing. So then she forgets that she's kissing him, right? Like, she's doing this while she's kissing him. And so he's just standing there, letting her do it. He's not touching her. He's just standing there. I think she like leans closer to him. And when she presses closer, he's like, whoa, what the hell? And he immediately like pulls away and panics and is like, you are full of surprises. And she's like, ugh, do you say that to all the girls? Which is repeated dialogue from part 1. Oh, she also says when she's going to kiss him that his breath smells like juniper, and I lost my mind. I was like, you're telling me that I have another gin drinker on my hands? Say less. So once he like collects himself, because, and it was a tiny kiss, right? They were, no tongue. It was a tiny little kiss. He almost collapsed on the spot. The cracks are showing already, you little bitch. Once he calms down, he gives her a silver ring, which is how they're going to communicate with each other. And yes, this is the silver ring that he is still wearing in part 1 that she remarks, it's such a strange thing for an iron alchemist to be wearing. Girl, he put like an entanglement charm on it. So if he warms it once, it means that she needs to come meet with him. If he warms it twice, it means that she needs to urgently come meet with him immediately. She thinks it's really cool and she's like, oh, nice. So should I call you the same way? And he goes, no, you don't ever summon me. You burn me ever. And this deal is off. I'm not a fucking dog. If you want me, you can come here and wait or leave a note and I'll get around to it when I have time. I don't know about y'all, but me personally, I can't wait to watch him walk that right the fuck back. She agrees, and he passes on the first folder of info for the resistance. She debriefs with Crowther and confirms, like, yeah, he's super prideful, right? Because the idea of her calling him sent him into a crazy rage instantly. He for sure has to be undying because his body looks the same and she can't transmute him. And our man Crowther is just as creepy as everybody was afraid he was. He's like, oh, do you need a test subject? I could get you an undying to experiment on. And she's like, no, I don't want that. Thank you so much. He knew the Farrens, which we've already established, and so he realizes that the silver rings must be from his mother's side of the family because she was a silver alchemist, which is part of the problem with their backstory. Let's get into that now. So his dad was from a high-ranking iron family, obviously. His mother was from a silver family. They were not supposed to get together. They did anyway, and everybody was like, oh, he just, you know, was like fascinated by her, and then she accidentally got pregnant, and so he had to marry her. And Helena is like, oh, that's so sad, but like, that was Cain, like the baby was Cain. And Crowther's like, no, it's even worse than that. She had several miscarriages, and then when they finally had Cain, it made her really, really sick to carry him to like full term, and then he was really sickly when he was born, which Aurelia already told us, right? We knew that about him. The like stories around it are that Cain's vivimency basically drained his mom from the inside, which is what Helena fears happened with her and her mother. And then once he was born and he was technically okay, his father was super controlling of him because he didn't want anybody else to know about the vivimency. So they kept it hidden. So he treated Cain like a dog on a leash. You're seeing why he has control issues. Yes. This is why Crowther was his advisor to begin with, okay? The Eternal Flame sent him in there to keep an eye on several students so that if they turned out to be Vivimancers, they could be like, ooh, you're in trouble, and kick them out of everything. Our girl Helena was real smart in school, right? So she still has a lab at the Resistance headquarters base, and she is working on multiple things that she was inventing in school at 16. One of these things is a compound that turns things invisible. So she does that for her ring so that nobody can see it on her hand. At her next visit with Cain, he snatches her the second she comes into the room and paralyzes her. And then after a minute, he's like, oh, right. And he takes it off her lungs so she can breathe, but she's still standing there paralyzed in front of him. She's terrified, right? And he's once again very insistent that he's not going to take advantage of her. He makes that abundantly clear nearly every time they're together that like he's not going to touch her unless she wants him to. He does put his hand on her forehead though, and he uses his animancy for the first time to look into her head. She thinks he's reading her thoughts. Like she can feel him in there, like flicking through everything, and she essentially throws him out and is just like, what the hell was that? Like, how are you able to do that? He explains that it's not like specifically reading thought for thought. He can just kind of flick through images and like feelings and things. So he can teach her how to keep things hidden. And really the best thing you can do is like when somebody's looking in your head, think of something else that's like a diversion thought, and then they'll latch on to that one and look at it more, and everything else can kind of slip away. So he does want to help her learn how to do it, but only because otherwise she could give him up. This power of his gets her completely cut off from the eternal flame, because now she's a liability and he could find out anything through her from looking at her memories of meetings and stuff like that. We get another repeated dialogue moment where one of the times that he is searching through her memories, obviously it's painful, right? So she ends up passing out, and he is weirdly nice and like helpful. He's very hot and cold with her, right? So she never really knows what to expect, but he's helpful in this moment, and to the point where she's like, did this happen to you? Like, how do you know how to fix me and like bring me back when the power messes me up like this? And he's like, oh yeah, it was part of my training. Like, this happened to me all the time, worse than how I'm doing it to you. I'm trying to be gentle. You know, the people who taught me were awful. And because he's like soft in this moment, she asks him if he killed Apollo for real. And he says, shall I tell you everything I've done? Are you looking for a confession? And she just looks at him and is like, do you want to? So we start seeing in this moment specifically that like vulnerability of any kind makes him vicious. Rabid dog vicious, right? We knew that a little bit because like she kissed him and then he was almost immediately like, and when I kill you, what then? Now she sees that he's lonely. Like, she catches this moment of him being like, oh, you want me to tell you what I did? But his eyes are like, please, 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 please ask me what I did. I need to tell somebody. Somebody's got to know what happened to me. And so she latches on to that and is like, you ain't got to tell me, but you do need to recognize that you want to tell somebody. You are lonely and miserable. Sit with that. And he's like, how dare you point out my biggest insecurities? So he's immediately like, why would I want to tell you anything, before throwing the envelope at her and storming out of the little room. During her next hospital shift, Helena is introduced to 4 young healers. They're going to be her replacements, and she will be in charge of training them, but also Matron Pace is going to help. So it's supposed to ease her workload, but these girls are fairly useless and they don't follow orders well. They do whatever they think is best. They just don't listen to her. One of them is named Elaine Boyle. While the animancy lessons are going on, Helena slowly realizes that she's able to sort of manipulate Kane's energy back. Like, while he's in her head, she can mess with him too. And she's not sure if that means she's also doing animancy, but she kind of thinks it is. So if you'll remember from part 1, this is what bothered Morrow so much, because he felt like when Kane was messing with her and looking for her memories and stuff, he should have realized that her being able to resist at all meant she had animancy skills. So now we know, confirmed, when Helena is resisting and she's aware of what she's doing it on purpose. Like, that's how the power works. One afternoon, Helena watches Lila and Luke training in the courtyard, and she just misses them desperately. Like, these are her friends, and she has been so cut off from everybody. She's really only talking to Kane, Crowther, and Ilva at any given time, and Matron Pace, but she can't confide in her, even though she's probably the nicest person that she's around. He sees her and immediately stops fighting and is like, oh my god, yay, you're here, it's next time, come hang out with me. And then when she looks like she's gonna refuse, he's like, oh no, come on, I'll set something on fire if you don't say yes. And then when she starts to protest, it says, the sky above them burst into flames with a crackling roar, drowning out her words. Sorry, you were saying? Luke asked. He's so cute. I just love him. Helena is also just like really charmed by him. And he's like, I think it's just this like, he's so genuine. Like, he's so genuinely very sweet. And so it's like, does he get things wrong? Yeah. But his base personality is just genuinely sweet and caring and loving. And it's so hard for her to hurt him, because she knows that in her mind she's doing what's best by staying away from him, but she misses him and he misses her, and so her staying away does hurt him. She just thinks it's the lesser of two evils. She gives in and is going to go hang out with them, and they're literally just going to the mess hall to eat dinner, but Crowther swoops in and like puts his foot down and is like, no, actually I need to talk to her, and like snatches her away and won't let her go. They keep threatening her with stuff whenever she gets a little too close to Luke, so he kind of reminds her that she's lower and lower on the totem pole now because of everything she's done with the necromancy stuff, and now she's not even really producing results with Cain. So he's like, you know, if you can't do better where he's concerned and bring us some actually valuable information, I just don't know what worth it's going to be rehabilitating you after the war. Which basically means that if she doesn't do like a perfect job and give them what they want, they're just going to tell everybody she's secretly a necromancy sympathizer and probably like throw her in jail after the war. Even though she's done all this stuff this whole time. I hate these people. Helena, later that night, she's out foraging for medicine supplies out in the, they call them the Barrens. It's kind of like the swampy marshland. And while she's out there by herself with nothing but her alchemy knife, because she forages as a civilian, okay? Terrible idea. She's out there all alone. Necromancers show up and release freaking chimeras into the wild. So these are like demented, like mutated, all kinds of, like chimera normally I think it's like what, a lizard and a lion and a bird. These are like all different kinds of animals smashed together, and they're just sending them out, and they're like rabid. Her ring burns while she's getting away, and she assumes that it's Cain who's gonna tell her, hey girl, there's chimeras out in the wild. And so she goes anyway because he has no way of knowing that she already found out. Sure enough, once they meet up, she tells him, yeah, so chimeras. And he's like, rude, how do you already know? He is, like me, horrified to realize that she's been going out foraging alone with nothing but an alchemy knife. Like a little cheapy alchemy knife, okay? The way their resonance weapons work, because they work with metals, if you're holding a weapon, you can transmute said weapon into a scythe or a sword or like double-handed sword or a dagger. Whatever you need it to be, you can turn it into something. They have limits, like certain metals can only stretch so far and things like that, but that is how the weapons work. And her alchemy knife can kind of do that, but it's mostly just a little like chip away at plants, cut things, chop things up. It's not a weapon. He tries to insist that she just stop going. He's like, you need to not be leaving unless you're coming to meet with me, okay? Because you put me at risk every time you're outside and you're useless. So stop doing that immediately. And she's like, that interferes with my work, and you swore that you wouldn't do that because I need to go get medicine supplies. She also loves being outside and needs time in nature, but she doesn't tell him that because she's like, he's not gonna care. She snaps at him that if he wants to control everything she does so badly, he'll have to wait until after the war. That annoys the shit out of him. He doesn't like when she points out true things about his personality. So then he's like, okay, fine. If you're not gonna listen to me, I'm gonna train you because maybe then you won't be so useless. It's very confusing for her because this whole time she expected him to want sexual things, and instead it's like the one kiss, and then now he's like, I'm gonna train you. I'm gonna teach you how to make your mind safer, and I'm gonna teach you how to fight with a knife and hand-to-hand combat so you can protect yourself. And she's like, what's the point? What are you getting out of any of this? It makes it really hard for her to imagine how she's going to manipulate him, and she's sitting there sort of realizing that like, it's not gonna work because he clearly doesn't want the things she thought he was gonna want. So then what does that leave her to do to him? And because they're so good at reading each other's moods, he's immediately like, what are you thinking about? And like, he clocks it. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you want me to insist we do something else with our time? And instantly makes it weird. Like, immediately he slips back into like the sleazy, flirting with her but like in a mean way vibes. She asks if he always likes to buy his company because it makes her flustered, so then she also gets mean. They tend to not realize how similar they are, right? So she thinks about him that like when he gets nervous, he gets meaner, and then she does it back. In especially early days, they match each other's energy constantly. So if he's mean, she's like, well, I can be meaner, and then that wears down later. But in the beginning, she says things like, do you always buy your company? But he's really good at being mean, and so he just looks at her and is like, yeah, I prefer the clear lines, no expectations, and not having to pretend like I care. And she just hits him with, yeah, How very you. Which again bothers him so much. Like, it's so funny to me, the different things that bother them when it comes to how they torment each other, especially in the beginning. I'm like, guys. Things get dark real quick though, because after he makes that sort of like dismissive comment about it, she immediately latches onto it, and instead of just filing that information away for later, she looks this man in the eyes and is like, oh, so that's why you won't touch me. You're afraid it'll be too real for you. Now, why would you do that? Why would you work him up and then say that? So then immediately, it's right, it's correct, okay? So he doesn't like to be told correct things about himself. She already knows this about him, okay? And yet she does it anyway. So he crashes out and is like, oh, okay, so strip. Nightmare of a boy. But she realizes, like, while nothing happens, okay, prefacing, nothing happens. Nothing's going to happen like that. It's not going to happen. Everything that happened in part 1, it will not be happening again. So no trigger warnings for that kind of stuff. But yeah, while she is starting to like unbutton her dress, she realizes that this whole thing has been pointless, because this is a game to him. Like, he's only making her do it now to prove that she will do it, because he's like, you'll do anything I say. Like, you literally sold yourself to me for the resistance that's pointless. You're not gonna win the war. None of this is real. This is a game. Like, he's having a fun time, so she thinks. So she gets even meaner, and this is what she says to him. It's power that gets you off, isn't it? Hurting people is the only way you know how to feel anything. But now, even that barely does it for you. So you have to find new ways to do it. Make your victims responsible for their pain, making it a choice they made, a vow they consented to. That's what thrills you now. Using what people care about to coerce and enslave them rather than having to do the physical work of hurting. You think you're better than us because you're immortal, but you're dead inside already. Ay. And you know, she thinks that she's gonna say that to him and it's gonna make him angrier and they'll keep fighting, right? That's not what happens. He just goes deathly pale because she read him to absolute filth. And he throws a temper tantrum and kicks her out without doing anything to her. Later on, she reflects on the reaction he had, and it says she replayed the shock on his face as if he hadn't realized what he was like until she told him. Eee, that is the danger with pointing your mirrors at each other, kids. Don't do it. Kane's super late to their next meeting, to the point where she thinks, oh my God, I ruined it. He left, but then he shows up and he's like not angry. He's back to giving her like the statue treatment, which is how she describes him in the early days of part 2. Every time she meets him, it's like very hard to read him. She already told us that in part 1, right? But this is before the white hair situation, and he's still pretty good at not letting anything show on his face. She immediately apologizes, and he's like, it's fine. Next time, just tell me no instead of provoking me. And she doesn't believe that he would stop if she ever told him to, so she sort of like halfway agrees to it, but it shows on her face because she's an open book. She can't lie to save her life, okay? Especially not to him. So he realizes that she doesn't believe him, and then that makes him angry. So now he's mad again. He tells her that the knife that she has isn't good enough for fighting, and she needs to insist on getting a better one, but then doesn't bring up training her anymore. Now she feels like she's failing the mission because he's doing like the statue silent treatment to her, and so it feels like he put another wall back up because she like touched a nerve, and I'm like, yeah, girl. And she feels like she can't figure out how to get around the wall, but because of the mission, she feels like she has to. And this is where I was like, girl, have you never met an avoidant man before? How is this new information to you? Like, it shook me to my core that she can't see that the silent treatment is a punishment. He's doing it on purpose. Leave while you can, girl. Oh my God. From here on out, Kane is routinely late to their meetings. So now he's weaponizing his presence in her life as well. Helena, girl. But he shows up one night real fucked up. And at first she thinks he's drunk because he has like his cloak on and he's like slurring and not, he's tall. I can't remember if we talked about that, but he's like very tall and very thin because 16. So he's like gangly at this point. So he's like swaying and very slurry. He can't look at her. He keeps like looking down at the floor and like kind of falling asleep and then waking back up. And she's like, hello, what happened to you? And then she sees the blood just like gushing from the left side of his body, coating his cloak, dripping on the floor, horrible puddle of blood. And she goes to take his coat off just out of like triage habit because she's a healer and this is what she does. And he like flinches back from her and is like, "What are you doing?" Like panics. And it says he shoved her away, recoiling. No pride now. He moved like a stray, expecting to be beaten, the whites of his eyes glaring. Girl, I told you. She wants to help heal him because he's losing way too much blood. He's supposed to regenerate, right? The Undying can't be killed, but for whatever reason, his body is just like not fixing itself and he's losing so much blood that she's like, "You're absolutely about to bleed out any second. You should already be dead." Turns out his entire left arm is just not there anymore. The whole thing's been ripped off. He explains sort of offhandedly that he dueled another commander to the death. They can't die. So it was just like to the almost death, basically. And then he won. So now he's commander over some new districts. He does lose so much blood that he passes out. So she's like, "Thank God, now I can fix him." She gets his shirt off so she can like see the wound completely and like gets him on the table. And all she has to do is stabilize him long enough for his regeneration to kick on, because basically what was happening is he was losing so much blood, like his body was fixing the blood loss while his arm was still missing. So it was just sort of like gushing out of him in like a constant stream. So once she fixes that, his arm is able to regrow. And I am so bad at gore, but this did sound really cool because it was like the bone comes out and then the veins and the muscles and the skin just like slowly layer on top of it. Ooh, I thought that was so icky and cool. While she's working on him, she also feels the little lumithium device in his chest, so she knows that that's sort of the thing radiating his regenerative energy. Like I said, she took his shirt off to heal the wound, and she's once again struck by the fact that he's literally a child. Like, it shocks her because they're in the middle of this horrible war and he is actively moving up in rank and he's a boy. Like, it's just like so alarming. And again, his energy is so funky that she like can't wrap her head around it. So she's like looking at him, trying to like make it make sense. And he wakes up and immediately picks on her for staring at him. And she hits him with, "I wasn't leering at you. You look scarcely grown. I don't fancy boys." He's like so hurt about it that he shuts down completely and goes straight back into statue mode. I don't even think he thanks her for healing his arm. So we can assume now that he is at least moderately attracted to her, and the fact that he's trapped in the body of a child and she will never like him back is clearly a sore spot for him. The whole situation with the injury humanizes him for her, and it annoyed me and it made sense because it's like Helena is literally a healer. Like, that is what she does all day, every day, is fix people. So it's not that I'm surprised that she sees him and is like, "Damn, he's so broken. I could fix it." But it like is still kind of annoying that it warps her perception of him so entirely. Like, he goes from this like unkillable kind of mythical monster in her head to like a boy who could be killed if they're not careful. And she's suddenly very uncomfortable with like the reality of that. We saw part of this memory in part 1, but Lila and Helena meet up, and there's a certain tone deafness to their friendship that I've seen some people, I'm trying to, I know what happens at the end of the book, but I'm still trying to avoid like spoilers and really engaging with the fandom until I completely finish it. But I have seen the discourse around Lila and people saying that they really didn't like her. And again, I'm not done completely, but I don't think my opinion's gonna change. I also don't really like her. And it started here for me before we even find out the spoilers later on. This conversation is so tone deaf, and it just feels like they both see that Helena can't rely on them, but also they want to offer like fake sympathy and, "Oh, we're your friends, you can talk to us about anything." But she can't, because when she goes to them for things, they sort of immediately are like, "Oh, poor little immigrant girl doesn't know what she's talking about." And they get really condescending and rude, and they're supposed to be her best friends. Helena is also battling the fact that she doesn't really know who she can even trust anymore. And the closer she gets to Cain and like the more wrapped up in that she gets, she feels like telling anybody puts them in danger because he's crazy and like he'll kill them if he needs to, no questions asked. So she just doesn't know what to do. Turns out that she had every right to be anxious about Lila talking to her, because the only reason why she's doing it is because Soren told her about the necromancy incident, because twins, okay? He doesn't keep secrets from her. She didn't tell Luke either, because they both agree that it will ruin him, but she seems to like genuinely understand why Helena would think that that would be a good idea in a way that the boys don't, okay? And I did think that was kind of interesting, because the boys are like, that's never gonna happen, we're never gonna allow that, no. And Lila says, you know, I don't agree with you, but I completely get why you think that that would be a good idea. Like, I see where you're coming from with it. She thinks that what's wrong with Helena is the trauma from the hospital, and so she's very worried that Helena isn't okay, and she thinks that what she sees in the hospital is significantly worse than anything they see on the battle, which again is not something that the boys really ever offer. And she knows about the toll, and so she's worried that Helena is using it and will die quicker because of it. And Helena's shocked by this, because she didn't really think anybody understood what she was doing. And it almost makes it worse to know that Lila is aware of it and they're all just allowing it to happen. Again, she tells Helena, you can tell me anything. And Helena's like, I really can't. So there's actually no point in us talking. We should just stop. I'm glad that you're home safe. And Lila is like, okay, if that's what you want, you know, I really hope that you're able to take some space away from this and that your mental health gets better, because she really is worried about her. Kane starts their next session by saying that they should work on her fighting skills. It's totally not in retaliation to her saying he looked like a little boy. So he abruptly kicks her ass. Super violently. Because as she's already stated to us and to him, she's not a fighter. Okay, she took calisthenics and stuff in school, but she's not trained in this, and he knows that, and he still just kicks her ass, just because he can. I'm pretty sure he's already a general at this point. So his combat skills are excellent. Also, his power is crazy. She is strong power-wise, right? But he is connected to the necromancer, so his power is always going to be a little bit more intimidating and scary than hers, because he's drawing kind of from Morrow. There's like a connection there. Even though she asks him point blank to stop during the fight, he doesn't, and he ends up hurting her hands. He literally crushes her wrists and hands slightly so that both of them are messed up, and she's devastated. She's like, you literally told me you weren't going to do this, and he just doesn't say anything. My man. It says she'd known this was a possibility, but he'd lulled her into a false sense of security, waiting until she let her guard down to finally hurt her. It was crueler than if he'd done it from the start. Oh, and then she says, do I get to know why? Did I do something? And he says, you exist, Marino. I think that's reason enough. She asks him if he has any information, because that's why she's supposed to be there. The training is all extra. She's like, do you have info for us at least? And he goes, no, that was all. Put him in front of me. Put him in front of me. I'll handle it. I will handle it. Oof. And while she's gathering her stuff to leave, because he attacked her as she walked into the room, her medical bag got cracked and is messed up now, and all this medicine was wasted, and she packed it with extras in case he ever came back so injured again. A man's fragile ego really is the biggest danger there is, y'all. Don't let anybody tell you different. That's the biggest issue. She has to go back to headquarters injured because there's nothing else for her to do. She can't fix her hands herself because he broke things like in her wrists and like the base of her palms. So all the nerves are messed up and she can't get her residents to go in and fix anything. She goes to the hospital first and lies and says she fell in the marsh, and Matron Pace takes her to Crowther, and Crowther has a little girl named Ivy fix her. Ivy is one of his like spy network people, and when I say little girl, I mean little girl. She's like 14 maybe. And then he makes a plan to create kind of a safe house location for Helena, because he says that she can't come back to headquarters injured or people are going to start asking questions. Now this is when Kane's bullshit really started to give me the ick, right? He was walking on thin ice for a while there, and it got real bad real quick. He shows up late again, but this time he announces it. Like, he literally walks in and is like, I'm late. As if she's gonna be like, yeah, you are. Like, my man, she's terrified of you now. But guys, that's the point. He knows he scared her into submission, and she's so worried about keeping him happy that she's not gonna point out any more fears or flaws of his, because now she's terrified he'll retaliate. Give me 5 minutes and a baseball bat. particularly Negan's baseball bat, and I will handle it. Just like the first time he threw a tantrum, he tries to walk it back and apologize by saying he didn't mean to hurt her. I don't think this man says I'm sorry in this scene. I think he just says I didn't mean to hurt you. But she says that she always expected that he would. And what do you know? That pisses him off. She's starting to figure him out piece by piece. And so while her behavior with him bothers me because sometimes it feels like she gets what not to do and then she does it anyway just to double check herself, but she's realizing that the fragile ego, you know, his sense of self, is wrapped up in the fact that he's better than the other undying. He has to believe that or everything crumbles and then he's a vicious, evil boy. But at the end of the day, the two of them know that he's exactly the same. He bought her for fun. He snaps that, like, you know what? Never mind. He doesn't care if he hurts her bad enough that she can't heal anybody. And she's like, yeah, dude, that's because you're not human. That's because you're not human. That's because you don't have empathy. And he's just like, yeah, okay, well, you have pathetic self-defense skills. And he goes on to be like, they're even worse than I expected they'd be, which is saying something because I have a low opinion of you. And it's like, my man, who asked? When did she ask what you think of her? She never asked. Shut up. Once again, walking it back. Okay, he loves to be like, gah, 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 and then walk it back. So he says, I want to keep training you, and if I hurt you again, I'll fix it, because he also has vehemency. So he could have handled it last time. She never even had to go back injured to Ivy, but she left because he was being so awful. And then he gives her information that should hopefully help the resistance get some extra food supplies, and he says that if it works, he wants Crowther to up her rations. Our man Shisio is working routinely in the lab with her now. They're slowly building a connection with each other. He's so quiet. Like, if you think Kane is statuesque and quiet, Shisio just doesn't talk. He doesn't share anything with anybody. He just nods and smiles and listens. They look over a chimera together, and she is horrified by how the body has been put together. It's literally just random pieces of animals. The muscles that aren't supposed to go together are sort of just like hodgepodged and overlapped. And so it's no wonder that the animals are really rabid and scary, because they're like horribly constructed and they must be in like crazy amounts of pain. Shisio has been blacklisted as well by the resistance, which is why they're together, right? It was sort of, it kind of meant to be like a punishment of like, oh, if you need help in your lab, we guess you can have Shisio because he's also a foreigner. So it's like, we'll just stick them in a lab together and see what they get up to. But they actually get up to a lot because they're super freaking intelligent, and then they're similar, so they work well together, and all their stuff is like coming along really nicely. She tells him that she would be happy with him using the lab for his own work as well, because up until this point he was just helping with her stuff. At first he's kind of like, oh, I don't know, like I don't really need to, and she makes a comment about how they really should be sticking together, and he's like, you know what? I guess I do have a few things I could bring in. Things start to get weird with the necromancy side of things. They're like pulling back in battles and like losing territory and also getting a little bit more violent. So Kane is like more and more distant, which is saying something, because he was already avoidant as hell. Now it's worse. Then he tells her randomly one day that he's gonna go on a mission to Hevgos, which is the country that they think is going to partner with the necromancers. Morrow is also going, so it's clearly a big deal. And then he tells her, you know, we might as well skip the next couple weeks of meetings. I don't think I'm going to be coming back. With Morrow gone for so long, the resistance attacks even harder, and they get back a lot of territory. They end up taking a lab back and getting a ton of supplies and stuff that they desperately needed in the hospital, but they also, unfortunately, end up getting all the patients. And the chimeras were not only animals. So Helena deals with all of that, and it's an awful, I think it's like more than a week that she's like sort of dealing with that and figuring it out, helping as many people as she can. A lot of them just die and can't be saved. And then finally, when she's able to like get out of that mess, she's like, holy crap, I should at least go visit the meeting place, because what if Kane left me a message? To her shock, he's there when she gets there. He's so unwell. Like, this is nothing compared to the night that he lost his arm. She says he literally looks like a skeleton. Like, he was already, like I said, gangly and like stuck in like the growth spurt stage. He is like gaunt as hell. He looks sick. Like, something is clearly very, very wrong with him. She thinks for a second that he's actually dead, and is just now a lich using his own body still. He explains that when they took back the ports, he was punished since technically he was the commander in charge of that location. And she's like, no, that wasn't you. And he's like, yeah, girl, remember the night I lost my arm? I battled that guy to get the ports, and then once I was in control of them, oopsie, I let the resistance take them back. She is shocked by that because Crowther and Ilva never mentioned that that was going to happen. So this whole time that he went on the mission and was away for so long, she never had any knowledge of why he thought he wasn't going to come back. It never made sense to her. She just was like listening to him and being like, he knows something I don't know. This is the thing that she had no knowledge of. So if it's not clear yet, like, she is quite naive, but it's interesting because it's like, she's naive in the sense that she just expects the people in charge to be doing the right thing. So the fact that Cain works for them, she's like, why would they put him in danger? Like, that doesn't make any sense. He's already in danger. They wouldn't make it worse because he's helping us. He hasn't given us a reason to turn on him, so why would we? Even though in their heads, he's already turned on them. Like, he's an asset right now, but he's expendable as hell, so they don't care if they lose him. So she also just like takes people at their word, right? It's giving autism. I've never related to her more. Cain, though, isn't surprised by any of it. And he's like, I knew this was gonna happen. I expected it to happen. And he just wants to know if it worked and they have enough food and do they have enough men to maintain the territory that they got back. And she assures him that, like, yeah, so far so good. Okay, so he's hurt, right? And obviously that makes his temper worse. She offers to help and he's like, girl, what are you gonna be able to do? Okay, you're just a healer. You can't do anything, leave me alone. And she's like, you know, maybe if I was just a healer, dumbass, but I'm a vivimancer. So would you shut up and let me look at your back? When he finds out that she has vivimancy, he calls her a conniving little bitch, and that did give me the ick. It really did. When men use that word and they're like okay with using it, I'm like, oh, I see. When she touches him and uses her resonance on him, she's able to see that the wound on him is essentially killing him, and then his body is frantically trying to regenerate, and then he's dying again. So he's literally in like a weird immortality loop where he's dying and coming back and dying and coming back and dying and coming back in like a matter of minutes, just repeatedly. And this has been happening to him for days now because she didn't know something was wrong, so she didn't come back quick enough, and he didn't call her because he's an idiot. On this note, I find it so funny that I felt significantly more sympathy for him in part 1. Like, reading part 1 and knowing him and realizing there was more going on and it was like bigger than we understood and wanting to figure it out with Helena, I was eating it up. I was there for him. He had me. Now seeing him just actively being an avoidant little narcissistic freak, I'm like, oh. Anyway, he's annoyed because of course he is, but he gives in. He lets her look at the injury properly because she just looked like resonance wise, like did a body scan. So he takes his shirt off and shows her his back, which is like horrifically maimed. It's this huge, ridiculous alchemical array that's been etched into his skin. So there's 9 circles and all of them are connected and everything, like a typical array, except normally they would be 5 or 8, remember, because of the gods. This one has 9. And the ones on his shoulder blades are carved so deep that they're etched into the bone. There's a lumithium alloy like embedded in the symbols to keep it active because otherwise he would heal, it wouldn't work anymore. But the metal basically keeps the wounds semi-open so that they can't close up and it'll just stay draining him. So essentially it's like pulling all of his energy like a battery. So it's like leaking energy and pulling energy, and his body can't keep up, and that's why he's in the weird cycle of dying and coming back. She's horrified, right? And he's like, oh, it was an experiment. You know, if I survive, then I'm forgiven for what happened. She can't heal it for him, which he already knew. Like, it's an unhealable injury. It's gonna kill him. But she says that maybe she could contain it long enough for his body to heal around it, and then that way he would at least stop dying over and over again. So she very carefully draws all of the blood poisoning back to the wound and then out of his body and cleans it as best she can. It's excruciating for him. And she's really surprised by the level of pain that he's in, because the night that his arm got torn off, if you'll remember, he just kind of acted drunk from the blood loss. Like, he wasn't moaning or groaning in pain. He was just chilling. Now he like can't, like she touches him even a little bit with the rag on his back and he's like screaming in pain. She asks if she can give him a sedative to help and he's like, oh, it won't work. Like that's, everything wears off. That's why I have to drink so much. One more thing from back on the night when he lost his arm. He joked that like he was gonna get so drunk that he couldn't remember his name for 3 days. I told you his drinking would be a trend back in part 1. I didn't lie. We're not done with it yet. It's gonna get worse. So she offers to knock him out while she works because there's like a certain nerve that she can hit in his brain where he'll go completely unconscious and just sleep. He won't even be able to wake up from the pain. And he is like, really? You can do that? Yes. Knock my ass out. And she knows he's in pain because when has he ever allowed something like that to happen? So she puts him to sleep and then is able to like fully clean the wound completely. Once she gets it cleared up, she can see the symbols more clearly, and she realizes that they represent the words calculating, cunning, devoted, determined, ruthless, unfailing, unhesitating, and unyielding. And she understands that if it works, it will alchemize him down to these traits, essentially. And she's pretty sure that that would also involve erasing all of his other personality traits. And it's like, girl, what else is there? What else has he shown you? At this point, he's not even being funny. Once she's done, she does let him sleep for a little bit because it's clear. Like, again, remember how sick he looks right now. She knows that he hasn't been sleeping because she can only imagine the level of pain that he's been in. She thinks over the fact that he knew the resistance was going to betray him. He was fully expecting her to be the troublemaker the whole time. And she hates the idea that he thought so badly of her too, that she would leave him to this fate. Because she would have come and helped him had he called her, but he didn't call because he assumed she knew what had been done and she was letting him die. As he wakes up, she massages his hands, which if you'll remember in part 1, he was doing to her when she was dying. She begs him to let her try and make up for what's happened by healing the injury as best she can. She says that she'll come every single night to prove it to him. She just wants to help if it's possible. He reluctantly agrees, but he says that if she makes him come and she doesn't show up, he won't come back again. She apologizes one more time and calls him Cain, and he's like, don't do that. And she's like, don't you think like we're past surnames at this point? Like this has been going on for months now. And he's like, you know what? You can call me whatever you want. I won't be changing anything. Goodbye. And he just leaves. She goes back the next night and one of his necrothralls grabs her from the little shabby room and takes her deeper into the outpost to a panic room. She says that it feels grotesque in comparison to how the resistance has been living, to see like how lavish and like fancy it is. He's drinking again to numb the pain, and so whenever we talk about that now, it's in extreme excess because he has to go above and beyond to feel anything. She goes to help him and he flinches away from her because right now, again, he's in excruciating pain. She automatically apologizes and he yells at her to shut up until she finally knocks him out again. She knows that the resistance would probably want her to just kill him since that was apparently supposed to be the plan, but she can't do that because now she recognizes that she's earned his trust. And she's seen proof that he really does want to help them. Like, regardless of what his reasons are, he is telling the truth about wanting to be on the Resistance's side. So she feels like it would be against everything that she believes in, that they're supposed to believe in, to turn on him now. It's interesting because she sees how unfair it is for them to treat him like this, but she's not yet ready to accept that they are also doing the exact same thing to her fully. It's like she knows because she's intelligent. So like she sees that it's happening, but if she admits it, then it becomes real. So she just pretends like that's not what's going on and sort of funnels all of this energy that should be going to herself into him. She realizes this night, which is like the first night that she's looking over him properly, that she's too late to heal what's happened to him. Like, it's gonna kill him for sure. She was able to contain it and everything, but his body can't handle it, so he's still gonna die. And she freaking uses her holdfast necklace, so it's a sunstone, and she knows that like it holds power because she has felt it heal her off and on. Like whenever she uses the toll and she knows that she should probably pass out or burn out, she doesn't. She seems to kind of always like Energizer Bunny herself and fix it. And so she takes the sunstone out, hoping that maybe she can figure out a way to use it on him, and it falls out, like I think it drops out of the necklace quicker than she's expecting it to, and when it breaks on the floor, like a quicksilver material comes out of it. And it's like this really weird texture where like she can hold it and it'll be solid, but then like it'll become a liquid in her fingers, and it's beautiful, but like really strange. And it puts her in kind of like this dazed trance while she's using it. And she just scoops it up, takes it over to where Kane is like slumped over a chair, picks him up carefully, and just puts it on his chest. And she puts it over his heart, thinking like, I'm supposed to do, she's in a trance. And so she's like, I'm supposed to do this for some reason. And the second it touches his skin, it goes into him. Like it just bloop into his skin. And she's like, whoa, I didn't mean for that to happen. And then he glows silver, like he just illuminates like the moon for a second. And then it stops and the trance is broken. She does not tell him that she did this, right? She just cleans the wounds as best she can, wakes him up, and is like, oh yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Anyway, we learn that that device in his chest that she knows connects him to Morrow is done so via like a piece of bone. He basically makes like a little relic of himself tying to them, and then it connects their souls. It's the Horcruxes, right? That's what it is. Her time spent healing his injury is weighing on her, and it's making her detach from like everything else around her. Now she's even more so worried about being morally responsible for Kane's death, because she feels like all of this is ultimately her fault, and like they're tied together now. And so this crushing sense of responsibility for him ends up on her shoulders, and it, oh boy, I was like, girl, no, 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 no. But it's too late. Like, she's accepted it. That's where she's at now. So she goes so far as to like go pray to Luna, who is like one of the lesser goddesses in this area, but back where Helena is from in Etreus, that's where they worship her more fully. So she prays to her, but the prayers go unanswered, and she doesn't know what she's supposed to think about that. It just kind of gives her more proof that maybe the gods aren't real, and she's even more confused. By July, Kane's hair is starting to turn silver. While they're at one of these healing sessions, he tells her that he's been gifted a chimera. Like he's survived long enough that they're like, dang, you're not gonna die. Nice job handling the punishment. Here's a chimera. And Helena's like, ew, can you just kill it? And he's like, is that what you would do? And she's like, no, I'd make it loyal. He goes, and if you couldn't? If a monster can't be made loyal, what would you do then? And she explains that she would just accelerate its deterioration so that she wouldn't have to kill it outright. Because remember, the chimeras are put together so badly. So she's like, just make that worse, and then it'll fall apart on you and die on its own, and you don't have to do anything. And he's like, wow, you're so pragmatic. It's alarmingly meta. The whole thing, alarmingly meta. They love to have a hypothetical that's not a hypothetical. And he did like the answer, right? Because he ends up being kind of teasing for like the first time in weeks because he's been so sick. And as they're going to leave, he says, don't die, Marino. I might miss you. Don't start it now, you little shit. One of the resistance spies is captured and tortured, and she comes back, but then they're afraid maybe she's a lich, so then Helena has to look at her. She's not a lich, right? But she has been horrifically wounded. They've essentially injected her with dozens of metals all over her body. It looks like maybe they were trying to like disrupt or dull her resonance, but they injected her with so much that the metal just ended up poisoning her blood, so she's gonna die no matter what. They're gonna make Helena do the autopsy even though it's her friend, and she's not the trained surgeon. They have a guy who is a surgeon in the hospital, right? But he's busy. So she's gonna have to do it. That night, when she heals Kane, he gets weird again and tries to like restart her training because his energy's coming back and he's bored. So he wants to start messing with her again. She's like, no, I have a procedure tomorrow. You cannot hurt me tonight. And he's like, yes, I know that you think I'm a complete monster, but I'm actually not planning on hurting you. So calm down. Just come here and try to attack me. And she's like, no. Like, A, you're injured. B, you're injured. C, you're injured. What's wrong with you? No. He acts like he's gonna let her go. But then when he opens the door, he summons all of his necrothralls and makes them come in on her so that she's surrounded in the panic room with him. They close in and she freaks out so badly that she throws out her resonance and essentially explodes all of them. Like the only reason why Kane survives is because he like bubbles himself in energy and all the necrothralls explode. While it's happening, we're obviously in her POV, so we know she's having weird PTSD flashbacks, and we've had a couple moments throughout part 2 where this has happened, where like it's gotten loud or somebody said a certain phrase, little things like that that have triggered her in some way. We don't know exactly what it was yet, and Cain had no idea about it. So he didn't know what she was going to do, but he didn't expect this. He freaks out on her because he did not realize she had that level of power. Also, his eyes turn silver in this moment, and they will start doing that anytime he feels big emotions. He, like, very gently cleans the blood off her face because she's so covered in blood and gore that her eyelashes are stuck together and she can't open her eyes. So he cleans her up as best he can and then puts her in the bathroom and is like, take a shower, regroup, I'll see you in a second. Goes out into the main room and he cleans everything. So when she comes out again, the room is normal. Now this whole episode makes him considerably softer. And when she comes out angrier than ever, he's like normal and like vaguely flirty. He wants to know what set off her vivimency because typically if you're like him, you're born with it and they can test for it at the hospitals and they know that you have it the whole time and so you grow up with it, right? But then with her, if that's not the case, it's late onset in life and it will show up from a traumatic event, which is what he knows must have happened because that's why she's not good at controlling it. She explains that she was in the field hospitals with her father when they first started making the liches and things like that. So the necrothralls overwhelmed them, changed everybody, and her dad didn't know, like, he was so unused to what was going on and he'd never seen it before that he didn't know how to fight back against his friends. He ended up getting turned and he attacked Helena. So she survived. They call them the massacres. They were like the first rounds of this happening back at the beginning of the war. And she explains that seeing her dad like that and everything made her do the explosion thing for the first time. And that's how they found out. He belittles the fact that she wastes her talents being a healer, and she's like, you have no idea what it takes to undo the things that you and your people do to people. That, of course, makes him uncomfortable because it is a true statement, and he hates that. This, like, quiet moment that they have here is when she realizes for the first time that, like, yes, his hair is turning silver, but also he looks different. Like, considerably older, sort of all of a sudden. She says it's like he's being yanked forward through time, where his body is just catching up to all the time he lost, seemingly all at once. It's happening very quickly. And she's so drunk that she's like, is he cute? What? She asks if he can feel the array and if he thinks that it's working, and he says yes. It's exactly like what she feared the first night she saw it clearly. It feels like he's being beaten down and like synthesized into those key elements. He says he feels certain things less than he did. It's easier to be ruthless and focused, but harder to dissuade himself from impulses that align with what he wants, which will come back to bite him. Also, this is when we find out that he designed the symbols. That was part of the punishment. He wanted to prove that he would do whatever it took, so he made the array. That's why there's 9, you know, he went above and beyond. And so he sealed his own fate. And then Helena fixed him. So they both, I want that in writing right now. They actively made what he is together, okay? But she carries all the weight on her own. Girl, let it go. It was also good that he made it himself because yes, he picked out the traits and everything, but he didn't tie it to a specific person or cause, which means that he didn't lock in on Morrow or the necromancers. He can still go after what he wants specifically. While Helena is doing the autopsy and figuring all that stuff out about the blood poisoning, she realizes the very alarming fact that the necromancers are clearly trying to play with resonance and see if they can manipulate it enough to mute it, which we know is true from the bracelets later on, right? But the council is kind of like, how would you come up with that? And Mateus, because he's evil as all hell, makes her, like backs her into a corner with yes or no questions, say that she understands that it could be used for that because she's a vivimancer, so that she looks like one of the bad guys in front of everybody, and now they think that she can't be trusted. Crowther steps in though, and he's the one that ends up saying it could be used, you know, to control prisoners. And that keeps her from having to get into more trouble, but it also ties her to Crowther deeper now, because now it looks like like he's helping her, so she needs to be reliant on him, and everybody is puppeteering everybody all the time. And then poor Helena is walking around like, can one person just be trustworthy? And they're all like, no. Crowther tells her that he thinks that she's being stupid by trying to get Cain to fall for her. And she's like, that is what you told me to do. And he's like, no girl, I told you explicitly to use vivimency. I told you to manipulate him into liking you. And she's like, that's not how it works. You can't make emotions. Like, if he doesn't like me and then I start tugging on emotions that he doesn't have, it's not gonna work. Now, as the war is like going on, Crowther is like, it was really dumb of us to treat him as a human, because clearly he isn't one. You know, he's got no attachments, no empathy. There's no weaknesses that we're gonna find because he doesn't have one. He has made himself so freaking avoidant that nobody can touch him. He tells her that if she succeeds in like lighting this spark in Cain and then being able to manipulate him from that point, she's more likely to damn the eternal flame than to save them. Because the Farrens are fueled by ambition, which we already knew. They're possessive to the point of obsession, and they don't share. So if she does this to him, she's gonna wind up with a man so obsessed with her that he'll refuse to be secondary to anyone ever again. So she feels like they've given her this impossible mission. It's incredibly unfair that now they want her to just give up on him. And so she's like, look, I can't think of a better way to do this, so I'm gonna do what I think is best and try to get him to be loyal. He's already loyal. I just need to get him loyal to me, like you asked me to do. I'm gonna figure out how to do that. Unless you think of something better, fuck off. She's also painfully lonely because the isolation from all the other people in the resistance is just going on and getting worse and wearing on her. She has no friends. And this is why she's so primed to fall into the abuse cycle with Cain. But like, at least we're getting somewhere. Slowly but surely. It's time to finally close his wounds, and on her way out to go do that procedure, Luke shows up to the lab and wants to talk to her, so like horrible timing on his part. He tried to punish Matthias for being mean to her, but it backfired because Matthias was then like, I was only mean to her because she's a little necromancy-loving freak. So now Luke knows about the outburst, and he's like, apparently everybody knew. Why didn't you tell me? He's disappointed in her. And he says that this isn't her war and she just doesn't understand. And she's like, excuse me? What? Like, livid with him, but also hurt, like very confused. It's just so tone deaf once again. Very similar to how Lila handled her before. Luke just doesn't, they just don't register what they're saying as being hurtful to her because she has grown up here at this point. This is her home. She wants to win just as badly as they do. She realizes now that Matthias was never really going to do anything to her himself. He was hoping that if he stirred up Luke enough, he could convince Luke to just send her away on his own. And then that way Luke would think it was kinder to just go ahead and get rid of her since she just doesn't understand how they're going to win the war. She doesn't need to be a part of it anymore. So Helena immediately like backs down and is like, oh my God, Luke, you're right. Like, oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. It will never happen again, because she doesn't want to get sent away and taken from Cain. When she does finally make it to Cain, she is late, but like the good boy he is sitting at the table waiting for her. The new moon, no resonance thing is happening again like we saw in part 1. So they waited until tonight to do it in hopes that it'll hurt less for him because the array won't be as strong. Also, the regeneration will be slower, so hopefully she'll be able to do the procedure better, which is basically open up each wound and then heal it herself so that it scars in a way where he can still have like full range of motion in his body. He's already drunk because, again, because his resonance is lower than normal, he can actually drink semi-regularly now, so he's drunk as hell. And she's like, excellent news, because you have to stay awake this time. I have to make you move your arm and stuff while I'm working so that we can make sure that you don't lose anything. 10 out of 10 healing scene. I really enjoyed this. I thought the descriptions were cool. It was well mapped out. It was just very fun to read. Once she's finished, he's like beyond thrilled and also still drunk, and double also looking like the adult he's supposed to be. So it's just like a perfect storm for like his ego to just come back in full swing. And suddenly he's like, guess what? I'm hot again. And it was such a problem so immediately. Like so immediately. She's like, oh no, I should not be alone with him. And he's like, that's right, girl. It was so funny. So she tries to leave immediately and his charm is cranked up to like solid 25. So he's like, no baby, stay and have a drink with me. Just one drink. It literally felt like a written out version of the Baby It's Cold Outside song. Like, same energy. Once they're actually on the couch together drinking though, things mellow kind of immediately, because at the end of the day, he's just lonely. They're both so lonely, okay? They literally just want to hang out, and if anything else happens, it's like that's secondary to the fact that they just want to sit next to a person who doesn't actively want to kill them. He softens again because the really aggressive style of flirting that he does is 100% fronting. Like, that is not his actual personality, and we see it because he can't maintain it for very long. So it's like a mask that he'll do, and then either he breaks it and gets angry, or he breaks it and is himself. And this is one of those he's himself moments because he's so drunk that he can't like fight off his like normal personality. Helena has realized this about him now, right? So she sees the real him when it shows through, and that's why it's so annoying and hurtful when he covers it up again, because when he's being himself, he's actually quite nice. Like, she doesn't hate him anymore. She just is annoyed by how volatile he is. They talk about how they're both trapped by the war for different reasons, and she ends up crying, which like spooks the hell out of him. He's like, oh, what do I do with all of this? He like sees her crying and then like goes into his own stupor of how sad it is, and he's all touch-starved and melancholy. So she like reaches over for his hand and starts doing the massaging thing, and he lets her do it and then is like, why are you doing that to me? And she's like, oh, my dad used to do it, you know, like when I couldn't sleep after my mom died, he would come in and like rub my hand and it would like remind me that he was with me. And he's like, yeah, why are you doing it for me though, girl? And that's when she's like, because you're lonely. And I can tell that you're lonely and I'm lonely and we're both lonely and we could be not lonely together maybe sometimes. For once, he doesn't pretend like this is disgusting, right? Again, so drunk, and also like he feels good for the first time in forever because he's been in excruciating pain for months. He asks her to see her hair unbound and she lets it down for him, and he is just like so infatuated by it, right? Which is not a reaction that most of the boys or the girls really have to her around here. Like, most of them want her to have her hair up or they want it to be straight or whatever. So that sort of like freaks her out because suddenly he's looking at her like she's pretty, and that doesn't happen very often. And then he leans in closer and he's like, if you don't want me to kiss you right now, you should say it. And then that really gets to her because she's like, oh my God, he's asking, he's being nice, like what do I do with this? So she kisses him. There's a really interesting thing that happened with Cain, which we've kind of touched on already, where like obviously the SA scene in part 1 happened, right? But now in part 2, when we're seeing the two of them together for the first time, he has been so concerned with consent, so concerned with her being comfortable. Like, he doesn't do anything of a sexual nature without knowing that she's okay with him doing it. He's like very concerned about that. He's so anti-touch that I kind of got the impression that he operates from a place of like, I don't want to be touched, so I'm gonna make sure you're okay with it before I touch you. That's at least how it read to me meeting him. I don't remember it being that big of a deal in the fanfic, but it's definitely like super done here. It's a good kiss, okay, for both of them. They're both having fun. She ends up in his lap. She feels guilty though for enjoying it. And then she starts to spiral about the fact that she feels guilty, and that leads to her kind of overanalyzing why he would be kissing her at all. And she realizes that like, oh my God, he doesn't like me. He doesn't want me. He already told me that he doesn't want anything to do with me. He's only kissing me because he's drunk and he feels good for the first time, and I happen to be here on the couch with him. Absolutely not. He feels her stiffen in his arms and like immediately lets go and is like, okay, you should go home. But she can't because the checkpoints are closed. So she'll have to stay the night somewhere. And she doesn't really want to go to the safe house. So she's probably just going to have to stay here in this room and he can leave. She ends up crying again. And he's like, oh my God. He asks why. And she says it's because she's lonely and she's kissing him and he doesn't even like her. Now raise your hand if you think that he quietly explains that he actually does like her very much, but it confuses him because he's never really had safe love before and he doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't know if he's capable of it. So because of all those weird weird feelings, he just sort of avoids it and is like, that's not real. That can't be real. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, because he's scared. Oh, nobody raised their hand? Yeah. They fall asleep on the couch. He passes out because that's how drunk he is. So he passes out first, and then she sort of watches him doze off and is like, I'm gonna get up and walk to the safe house, and then doesn't get up. And so in the morning, they wake up snuggling. I don't know how they did that, because they were on opposite sides. Like, they were not sitting together anymore, and then they wake up laying, snuggling. Like, good for them. She's able to sneak out and leave without saying goodbye, because he is so out of it from not having good rest for so long that he doesn't even move when she wakes up. Now, why she thought this was the right move, beyond me. Beyond, I couldn't tell you. She loves to be like, I mean, wow, he has a huge ego. And then essentially curb stomp said ego into the dirt while laughing. Later on, she's literally gonna be like, you know, it was probably smart that I did that. Like, I left him wanting more. No, girl, you let him ruminate, and now he feels like a little bitch for almost admitting how he feels about you. He's never gonna say anything nice ever again. It's over. Welcome back, Avoidant King. We did not miss you. Back at headquarters, she runs into Soren, and he's immediately like, why is your hair unbraided? I don't like it. Put it away. It's so much prettier when you wear it up and out of your face, and we can all pretend that you look like one of us. I'm kidding. He's not that mean, but that's how it feels, especially after the fact that Cain thought it was beautiful and just literally wanted to look at it. Crowther takes her down into the secret torture rooms to heal some of the people that he has been torturing, and that's when she meets Lancaster. She's sickened by what she sees Crowther doing, because Crowther and Ivy are two of the ones that are like doing the torturing, and it makes her really sick, but also she's becoming numb to all of it. And she understands that, like, just like how she feels about necromancy, this kind of stuff might be what they have to do in order to win. She talks to Ivy, who, remember, is a very young girl, thinking that she might need some emotional help, and Ivy is like, what are you talking about? I love the torture. The torture is like the best part of the job. These necromancer people are freaks. I love hurting them. Then she asks Helena if vivimancy can take away memories from somebody, and she explains that she has a sister. She lost time due to the war and what they've been through, and she's worried that if she ever gets those memories back, it will kill her. Lancaster ends up being so mentally fried that he ends up like merging Helena and Ivy into one person, which is why later on in part 1, he mistakes Helena for the person that hurt him instead of the person that was healing him. Helena goes back to the outpost, and Cain is not there. Even though it's weird, because up until this point they've been meeting every night so she could look at his back, she's like, this is a good thing, because it means that he doesn't need daily healing anymore, and we can go back to the twice a week situation. But wouldn't you know it, he was upset about the fact that she left him without saying goodbye, so he throws another bitch baby tantrum and just starts sending necrothralls to her instead of showing up himself. So that's productive. There's a really good win for the resistance, but the general on the other side that is attacked is Blackthorn, and he's the one who's known for eating his victims. So he lights all of his people on fire and then just sends them into the resistance front lines. So the hospital is just swarmed with burn victims all over again. By the time Helena is able to leave work again, it's been a week, and she's exhausted by the time she gets to the outpost. She doesn't realize as she's walking in that it's completely overrun by necrothralls. They're slow but persistent, and so she ends up fighting with them, and so she manages to like get away, but she gets stabbed through the calf by a pipe. She manages to make it to the tiny safe house room, and she can't heal herself right away because her resonance is down because she burnt herself out so badly working on those burn victims. Cain shows up, and I shit you not, he is so narcissistic that he thinks she injured herself on purpose so that he would show up. One more time, I'm sorry. Also, though, that's not what she did, but it did work. He did show up. So, like, I see why you're so defensive, my guy. He's gonna leave once he sees her, but then he realizes that her resonance is fried, and so he's like, oh my god, and he realizes she really will die if he doesn't do anything to help her, so he stays and fixes it. He asks her what kind of healing she's doing at the hospital in order to be drained like this, and she's like, yeah, I'm giving away my vitality to save people, and he's livid. She talks him through how to heal everything in order for her to get back, and she remarks that there's like a new sort of hardness about him. It's like, yeah, girl, you hurt his feelings. You hurt, he's hurt. And you shouldn't even say you're sorry because he's not mad at you, he's mad at himself. So you saying you're sorry is just gonna make it worse. She's too weak to open the door on her own, but Prince of Darkness over here opens it without crossing the room because his power is getting stronger. I loved this quote on the new dynamic. Relying on Cain Farron was like walking on black ice, knowing that at any moment it might break beneath their feet. Next time they meet, Cain is like, I think we need to work on your fighting again because clearly you need help. So remember when we were gonna get a training montage and then he changed his mind? Mr. Cold Shoulder has finally circled back, so here we are. Because he's being so aggressive, he's able to counterpoint that with a moment of vulnerability, and he explains to her that her mother didn't die because of her vivimency. That's not how it works. So you can't intentionally take somebody's resonance. You can't intentionally take somebody's vitality. It can be given, but you can't yank it out like you would if you were a baby, you know? He then teaches her how to take vitality from the necrothralls. So you're able to sort of like yank out the part that's reanimated, and then that energy can rebound back into you, because when necromancers make them, they put a little bit of soul in there, and then if you take it back, you're able to keep it for yourself. And he says that maybe that will help her keep the toll at bay. They fight, and he's way too intense because he's angry and he just won't admit it. So this is how he's getting those emotions out. He ends up kicking her in the back, and it's such an excessive blow that she stops immediately and is like, I'm done. We're done. Good night. She says, I'm not like you. If you hurt me to teach me a lesson, I need time to recover. And when I'm exhausted, I just make more mistakes. I'm not staying here to see how much you have to hurt me before you manage to remember that a trivial injury for you can paralyze me. You're lucky you didn't just now. Spooks him. Spooks him so bad because he realizes she's right, and oh my god, he almost killed her. And then what would he do then? If he's the reason why she's paralyzed? He's never paying attention to his actions until it's too late, right? And there, you can't apologize. It's too late, bro. You should have thought about it before you did it. While she's going to leave, he says, this isn't combat training. I'm just trying to teach you how to survive because that's all you can do at this point. She's like, I don't care what this is. You're a terrible teacher. Bye. Clap for her over this very small boundary right now because she will not be maintaining it. As they move into the autumn, the war slows down because the resistance got the ports back, so there's good things happening, but the battles are few and far between now. People feel better because they have more food, but there's just like no clear end in sight. Cain is still very grumpy and emotionally horrible to be around, but physically he's being a little bit more gentle with her because, like, yes, he was already aggressive before, but the array situation on his back is making it worse. And we know that. We know that that's like amplifying all the traits about him that already sucked. He's just getting worse. He's super short-tempered and very, very impatient with how slowly she's progressing. And the fact that he is like miles ahead now because of the array doesn't help. He demands she get a better knife once again. When she comes back and says that they won't give her one, he's livid. And he's like, fine, then give me your resonance. I'll get you one made myself. He tries to play it off very quickly as like thanks for her healing his back. And she jumps on that because he's not giving her any information. So she's asking all these follow-up questions. And he immediately snaps and is like, it's fine. It's none of your fucking business. Fuck off, Marino. I'm not your pet. And then he throws the envelope at her again and leaves. Like, oh my princess, take a breath. Just because you offered to do a nice thing doesn't mean you need to crush her into dust beneath your heel. Oh my god. Aren't you tired? Isn't it exhausting living like this, Cain? This is the thing, right? I know I'm being really hard on him, okay? And I just want to say that, like, I really like Cain as a character. I think he's so well fleshed out. He's, like, fascinating. I would read this whole book over again in his POV. Full stop. Like, I think he's fascinating. But it frustrates me because Helena has no context for his behavior. So she has this like warped version of what's going on, right? The temper tantrums are so hard to deal with. They are like painfully hard to deal with. And the fact that she can't see that he's fronting because he's secretly a little bitch and being mean to her is how he keeps from crying like a little baby. Oh, it makes me insane. I'm like, girl, if you don't just slap him, one good slap and he'd be good. Y'all would be good. It would be over, okay? But instead, she believes him and she thinks he's actually mean and scary and awful, and so she ends up cowering and like trying to make herself small for him. And we get all these like really icky moments in their dynamic where she's literally like, did I make you mad? Like, oh, I hope I didn't make you mad. And oh my god, oh, I hate it so much. She's also fairly unreliable because we just lived through this scene with her, and then it turns out that she actually did it on purpose to see what he would do if she told him no about the knife, like getting a new knife. So it's like she is actively trying to figure out how best to manipulate him, but because she has no context for his behavior patterns and she doesn't understand, she can't see that he's literally rewiring her brain and giving her brain damage. Like, the type of psychological and emotional abuse he's inflicting on her is doing lasting damage to her brain. Can't stress that enough. And I think that's why he pisses me off so much, because I'm watching it unfold and I'm like, we can't reverse this. This can't be undone. Stop. She's also starting to see them as like the mirrors that they very obviously are, describing them as the inverse and counter to each other, a healer and killer circling slowly. Ylva is back to meeting with Helena again because Crowther is so busy torturing people in his secret little murder tunnels. Helena is really proud of the fact that she got Kane to offer to make a knife for her because they're expensive. Like the weapons that are tuned to your specific resonance are super expensive, which is why not everybody in the Resistance has one. But Ylva is like, yeah, whatever. That's not that big of a deal. What good does that do us? Because nobody cares that the whole point is that he's falling for Helena specifically. So him offering to do things for her, even if they like feel small at this point, is going to lead to getting him to do big things down the road. Nobody's picking up on that because they don't think it's gonna work, because they underestimate her value. So they're like, why would he ever like her? She's a silly little immigrant girl. It always comes back to that, and it is as infuriating as it sounds with me saying it. Just imagine reading 400 pages of it. Even with the pride that she's feeling and how close she can kind of tell she's getting to him, Helena still thinks that his goals ultimately lie outside of her. So she's like, he probably is gonna kill me. Like, at the end of the day, if I end up being in front of what he thinks he needs, like the real end goal for him, he'll kill me to get to it, no questions asked. And Ylva is like, well, yes. Like, we knew that the whole time. Why did you think we were training new healers? She muses out loud that Kane is very lonely, and Ylva's like, oh, you're getting attached. Disgusting. I hope you can let those feelings go, because the only way I can protect Luke is if we know where the battles are going to take place, and the only reason we'll know that is if Kane tells us. So don't mess this up. Literally blackmailing her with her best friend that she's not allowed to talk to because she'll make the optics look bad. I hate these people. GCO helps Helena with her resonance testing, and they discover that she can work with like most metals really, really well, to the point where she could do his job. He wishes she had the ability and the time to like be trained in that because she'd be good at it. She expects to be told that she should work with steel, but he says that actually a titanium and nickel mix would be better for her, which is like a rare one. In exchange for helping her, he asks if he can examine the metals that were found in that spy's blood when they injected her with stuff. Lighting and day change. Anyway, Shicio, in exchange for helping her do that, he asks to look at the different metals, and at first she's kind of like, I guess so, but you know, all of our people like looked at it already, and like there's still stuff that we can't determine. And he's like, yeah, just let me try, please. And we don't know everything about his background yet, but like I've said, he's very intelligent. So Helena trusts him a lot, and she knows that the rest of the Resistance doesn't because he's a foreigner and they're all racist. But she agrees, and she's like, yeah, I'll get you the samples, and I can make that happen, so I can let you do that. Right around this time, there's an ambush on Luke's team, and so Helena is walking through headquarters, and all of a sudden everybody starts screaming. They drag Luke in, and he is like feral, trying to get away from everybody and trying to like go back out into the streets. And he's yelling like, I need to go, I have to go get her, let me go, because Lila got taken. Luke is panicking so badly that he's like shooting fire off and like attacking his own people, trying to get away so he can go save Lila. And Helena ends up having to like knock him out. Crowther is also injured in this because I can't remember if we talked about this yet because it hasn't really been relevant until right now, but Crowther is also a pyromancer, so he can do fire, and when Luke is like freaking out and throwing fire around, Crowther is the one that like puts it out and stops him, but then Helena is the one who like takes his hand and knocks him out really quickly so he can't keep hurting anybody. While she is helping like check over their injuries, she notices that Crowther's arm that's paralyzed has like a very easy fix. Like one of his nerves is like just slightly pinched, and if somebody had paid a little bit more attention to it when they were healing him, it would be fine and he would have at least some range of motion, probably not the full thing back, but some of it. So she just casually fixes it for him. I was really shocked that she did this, right? Because it's technically a vivimancy thing, like for her to go in and see it and fix it. And he's not about that life. So I was really surprised that she thought that that was a good idea and that she did it without waking him up and checking, because she could have done it while he was awake. Like it wasn't something she needed to do while he was unconscious by any means. But yeah, she just casually fixes it for him. And so I knew immediately, I was like, ooh, that's probably not going to go over well. They did find Lila and they bring her back. She was snatched by a chimera. And what ended up happening, like we get the story kind of slowly. So like they were attacked. Lila was like chomped on and then taken. And so that traumatized Luke, right? And Soren got knocked out in the initial scuffle. So when he woke up, Lila was gone and Luke was on the ground bleeding out. And so he grabbed Luke and took him home. And he feels guilty because he's like, my twin is out there. And there was this horrible moment where like in the chaos of everything, he was like, may I be dismissed? They took my twin. I have to get her body back because if they don't burn the body, they'll never see each other again. And so then everybody was like, Soren, you can't. Now you're primary until we recover Lila. Like, you have to take over her position. It was a nightmare for me as somebody who loves twins, okay? It was bleak for him for a hot second. So then they do get her back and everything, but she is so badly injured. Like, she is dying on the table. And Helena has to essentially drain herself into Lila to get her to stabilize, not wake up. Just stabilizing her is so bad that Helena like drains herself to the point of passing out. Matron Pace finds her and quickly like gets her in bed and is taking care of her. And I really loved this moment where like as she was passing out, Matron Pace like put a needle in her arm for an IV and she was like, oh, that itches. And she transmuted it out of her skin. I was like, me too, girl. I hate needles. When Helena wakes up, Luke is awake as well, and he's sitting with Lila waiting for her to wake up. Nobody died, right? But there was a lot of really bad injuries. And so Luke feels really guilty, and he does pretty much admit to Helena at this point that like, yeah, I put everybody at risk because seeing her get hurt scared me so bad that I went a little crazy. But, you know, she did the same for me. She threw herself in front of the chimera for me. Like, so it's just, they're not safe. Like, the two of them at this point really shouldn't be out and about fighting together because they don't listen. I really liked this moment for Luke because it was a very honest moment, I think, from him. And we get more of those than you're expecting in part one, because in part one it's this very like we talked about it, but it's like the golden boy persona that she gave him. I like seeing him be more real in part two, and he says that he feels so stupid for having been a little boy and like sort of looking up to his ancestors and thinking like how much he wished there was a war that he could fight in so he could like prove himself and like join the ranks of his family. And now he's living in it and he's miserable because it's horrific. There's nothing to be glorified about war. And he thinks that it's really ridiculous and awful that so many people in his life pitched it to him as this like great, amazing, cool thing to the point where he wanted it when he was growing up. Helena agrees. She thinks it's crazy that when you win a war and everything, you paint the picture, and like history paints it as like this amazing, awesome thing that you did. And at the end of the day, like there's no version of it that is like cool and fun. Like it's always going to be horrible. Luke gets his first fairly stern talking to by the council over this incident, and we think that they're going to separate them. Like, it's coming to that where everybody knows now that, like, they shouldn't be together. They really just essentially, like, shake their finger at him and are like, if you can't get it together, then we're gonna have to separate you because your friends can't be more important than the mission. And he doesn't want Lila to be taken from him, so instead of that happening, he just, like, lies and is like, yeah, okay, I guess I can uphold my vows and she can uphold hers and it'll be fine. Crowther is shockingly not angry about Helena fixing his arm. He says that he never thought much about vivimency before and never really cared about it, but she gives the Eternal Flame credit. Shisio figures out that the metals in that spy's blood are this super rare metal from his home country. It essentially creates inertia, so it stops resonance. It's like a resonance blocker on its own. When it's mixed with lumithium, the metal that they already have and use, it creates that weird resonance haze where like your resonance is just gone because it messes with it so completely that it blocks it and stops it from working. It is only supposed to be his Emperor's metal. Like it's so rare that it's only from his country, and it's only supposed to be used by the Emperor. It's like one of his like special things. And so he knows about it. He's like, I guess maybe the necromancers could have bought it off the black market, but I just don't understand. Like, it really shouldn't be here. It should only be with the Emperor. And Helena is like, so how do you know about it then, dude? And he's like, I just do. And they have this moment where they're like looking at each other across the lab table. And she's like, okay, so we're not going to tell anybody yet. And he's like, I don't think we should. And so they just keep it quiet. And they're like, until it becomes a mass problem, we'll just pretend like we didn't notice. But they do have to tell Ylva and Crowther because those two have to know everything. Kane and Helena are starting to discuss things a bit more frankly with each other. I would not say they're friends yet. I wouldn't go that far. But they are talking a little more, right? One day she just asks him, like, do you think that we'll win? And he's like, do you have a plan to win? Because the big problem that she sees, right, like she has been dealing with this and Kane has known it the whole time, is that Morrow will do anything. He doesn't care. He'll sacrifice his own people. He'll blow up the whole city. Like, if it means getting control of the land and winning, he'll destroy all of it. He doesn't care. But the Resistance has these weird, I don't want to say weird, they're like the moral compass rules that they're focused on are keeping them from doing things that would allow them to win, right? But then at the same time, they're still hurting people. They're hurting their own people, right? In crazy ways, right? So it's just a mess and it's not going anywhere and it doesn't look like it's ever going to end. He is steadily cracking under her influence and he definitely wants to talk to her. She's known that the whole time. You know, that when she realized he was lonely, she made that decision where she was like, if I can just convince him that he wants to talk to somebody and then I just make myself available, he will talk to me. And that is happening, but it's happening obviously slower than she wanted it to because he's so stubborn. He's so stubborn. But we are getting closer and closer to figuring out why he helped and why he agreed to do all of this. Also, he's 100% his age now. So his body completely caught up to where he's at in the timeline, and his hair is totally silver white. So that transformation has completed. She says he's all sharp angles and hard lines at this point, so all of like the boyishness is gone. However, in the same breath, she is so much softer to him now. Like, she likes him. I don't know why yet. Couldn't tell you why. Because he's still not even being funny consistently. In part one, he's so funny. He's funny all the time. his humor's not even out yet because he's still so behind the wall, and she's still just like, it's fine. It's fine, I'll just wait. Girl. But this is when she starts telling him, be careful, don't die, every time they say goodbye. So she's quite attached at this point. So because they're in this weird limbo of like talking a little more, being guarded still, there's things that he's not telling her, and he keeps getting injured, and there's a new weapon on the battlefield. And one day he comes back and he doesn't want her to heal him anymore, right? Because he doesn't want to keep risking her touching him. So he hasn't been asking for things. He's just been letting himself regenerate. But one day he's sitting in the chair watching her train, and he just passes out. Like, his eyes just roll back and he passes out. And she's like, what? When she looks him over, she finds this like shrapnel in his arm from a wound that he didn't tell her about because he's so stubborn. There was just metal in his arm, and he just was chilling under his cloak pretending like his arm wasn't. Anyway, she gets the metal out, and as she's pulling it out of him, it crumbles into dust and starts going into his bloodstream, and she realizes that this is that demented metal that was killing the spy. So she's like, I don't know if this will kill him or not, but I gotta get it out. So she takes her knife apart. Her alchemy knife is still the only one she has at this point. She takes that guy apart and turns it into like medical tools so she can do proper surgery. Gets it out of him, and it does immediately, like once that's gone, even though a little bit of it got into his blood, he's able to regenerate correctly. So she steals a little bit of it so she can take it back with her and they can like look it over, but most of it she keeps because she knows he knows there was metal in his arm, and she's like, if he wakes up and I tell him I took it out of his arm, he's gonna want it, so I have to have it here so I can give it to him. We get that classic romantasy moment when she wakes him up where he panics and grabs her by the throat, but I really liked the way it was written because like he sits up and grabs her and is slamming her down, but he recognizes her at like the last second and catches the back of her head so that she doesn't actually hit the ground hard at all, and he like cushions it. And I thought that was really cute, like his reflexes being so fast and stuff. There's a couple moments where it's just like really, it's nicely written, where you're like, ooh, that would be so satisfying to see visually. So he's immediately angry with her for having healed him, but then woken him up and like risking her safety, essentially. He's like, why would you do that? And it's like, buddy, she has done that multiple times. You have been unconscious and she has woken you up after a healing session multiple times. You just panicked this time, so you're mad at yourself. Jot that down. But he also, in like while he's mad at her, is like touching her throat and like checking her spine and her head to make sure he didn't do any damage with his resonance. And he does it really, really faintly, so she knows while he's doing it, she can feel it because they're very attuned to each other at this point, but she knows that he doesn't want her to know that he's doing it, and so she doesn't say anything. It's like the bar is on the ground. He has to admit that it's not a new weapon or anything, it's experiments being done by Bennett, so he's still being experimented on at this point after the array, because of the array, since it was supposed to kill him, but nobody else made it out. So the fact that he lived, now Bennett is like, what else can I do to you? This really breaks her heart because not only does she feel guilty since she's the one that healed him, so the continued torture is kind of her fault since she kept him alive, he also just hasn't been telling her. So she didn't know, so she couldn't heal him. And so she reaches out and like touches his face and is like, I'm so sorry, Kane. Immediate panic on his end. How dare you sympathize? He's so shocked he goes into a freeze response, and then he yanks away from her as if she's burned him and is like, you are unbelievable, truly. He thinks that she's only being nice to him because of the mission. That's his opinion on their situation, is that everything she's doing is a lie. He cannot trust her at all, and she means none of it. Meanwhile, Helena genuinely likes him now. He's awful, and she genuinely likes him. They're so useless. This leads them into the argument that is kind of similar to the one they had in part 1, because this is like fears that he's had the whole time. And it's just that idea that like she'll do anything for the people that let her love them. and the holdfasts like don't deserve it, and she like gives herself to them. So, and it's this thing that like, because of the narcissism, he thinks he would take care of her better than Luke can. She's not romantically involved with Luke. Luke is just her friend, okay? But that's like sort of bleeding into his decision making, where like he thinks that he deserves her more, but also he deserves nothing because he hates himself. And it's just a mess. And then he turns around and throws it all on her and makes it about the war. And so they have this conversation where he like starts ranting about how the holdfasts made it easy for Morrow to trick the other guild families because they were so annoying. And the guild families wanted freedom that they couldn't get under the holdfast, so they went to Morrow. That didn't work out because he was lying too, so he tricked all of them. So again, it's like this whole thing with trust issues. Like, Cain just doesn't trust anybody, ever. She tries to be like, but Luke and his family helped me and my dad. And Cain points out that like, okay, they let you be best friends with him at school. They didn't stop me from bullying you. They didn't do anything to change the system of the school, right? They allowed everybody to keep being shitty to you. They didn't help your dad get a good job. It would have been so easy to do that, but they didn't do that, Helena. What are you not getting? They keep the rules in place to keep people like Helena and Crowther beholden to them, but they give them just enough that they feel like they've been taken care of. She still can't fully admit this, but she knows that it's true because she's well aware that like people like her and Shisio are being kept in the dark. We also find out here that there was some undying that when the bloodshed started, so when Cain killed Apollo, some people tried to buck and run, and Blackthorn was one of them, the one that eats people now. And Helena's like, oh, okay, so how did he go from A to B? Because he's a psycho now. And Cain is like, yeah, Morrow didn't like that he said no, didn't like that he tried to leave, so he fiddled with the device a little bit and distilled him down into a crazy person. Cain gets so annoyed that she won't admit that Luke is part of the problem, so he ends up getting even meaner. He's already being kind of shitty during this conversation because the fact that she's being nice to him freaks him out, so he has to be mean. So he's still doing that, and then he gets meaner because he's jealous of Luke and ends up being like, well, how would he feel if he knew you sold yourself like a whore? He never brings that part of the situation up unless he's trying to hurt her. And it works every time. And it starts to make her feel like when he's being nice, that's the lie. And this version of him that only sees her as his property is the real one. Which, valid. At least she can see through it. This next scene is so small. It's like a page and a half. But I have thought about it constantly since I read it. Like, it upset me so bad. It's just, yeah. So they have this fight, right? And he's disgustingly awful to her. And then she goes home, is devastated. She's fighting back tears. And she starts preparing a solstice gift. And while she's doing it, she's like half crying, not letting herself cry, doing the solstice gift, trying to stay focused because she has a job to do. And she has to do it. So she goes back to him later that week and he realizes that her knife is missing and immediately gets angry again. She pushes through it and is like, yes, I did. I lost it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm in line for a new one. Also, here's a present I made you. Yes, she made him an emergency healing kit with medicines, especially attuned to his body since he regenerates and his powers are different. She made him new medicines and then put it in a cute little kit so that he could keep it on him, because she might not always be there when he gets attacked by the secret deadly metal thing. She also stands there and teaches him some like basic healing techniques and just like goes over all of like the basic injuries that he may or may not get and how the quickest and easiest ways to heal them are. She rambles for over an hour and he just stands there and listens to her until she gets to like eyes and like eye injuries. And she mentions that they're so hard to heal, which we knew from part 1. And he says, oh, Morrow doesn't have any eyes. And so that's when we learn that about him, that his body is deteriorated to the point where he no longer has eyes. Cain says he doesn't think it bothers him that much, but it's really scary to look at. She realizes how late it's gotten because, again, he let her ramble for an hour. So, we know he likes her, right? Like, we are aware that he likes her. I cannot get past how god awful he is. Like he's just the worst. And anyway, she tells him goodbye. She's like, happy solstice, I hope your days grow brighter. And she's about to leave, and he stops her and is like annoyed by the fact that he's stopping her. And he's like, I have something for you too. And she's like, what? He's like, I have something for you too. And he gives her the weapons that he had made. He got two. So there's a knife for like her forearm that's smaller, and then one for her back that's like a good like weapon. They're the titanium nickel mix, so they're crazy expensive. And they're even like the hilts of them are like engraved with vines, which she says, she's like, oh, that's such a nice detail to like make the grip stronger. My first thought was like, yeah, girl, because you like plants. You literally love foraging. He engraved them with oh my God. He makes her promise not to take them apart for anybody, which is a reference to how she had to take her alchemy knife apart to make him the tools to fix his arm. She doesn't really register that. There's so many things that she misses when it comes to the things that he does say, and it's because he's so mean that she just isn't ever expecting him to be nice. But like that, we see them, and that's why I do like him at the end of the day. But like, some of the things that come out of this man's mouth. Helena goes to Ylva to show her the knives because she understands what a big deal it is that he gave them to her. But Ylva is like disgusted and basically implies that if that's enough to buy Helena's loyalty, like she didn't realize she wanted trinkets and stuff, which isn't true. Like, it's just so annoying the way the people like Ylva and Crowther treat her, because she's put into this position of like silly, dumb, naive girl, even though she's doing what they told her to do and it's working. Ylva also says, you know, he's climbing rank. So you saved his life, and now he's even more demented than before, and he's still moving up and up and up and getting closer to Morrow. And that's how he earned the money to buy you these things. And it's like, girl, his family was wealthy already. What are you talking about? We have been going on and on about the wealth in his family for half the book. She basically says that like it's Helena's fault that he's still out there killing people, because she made the mistake of like humanizing him instead of seeing him as the resistance's victim like he was supposed to be. She's like, we picked you for your kindness and we underestimated how deep it would run. And Helena's like, well, let me make that worse for you. I used the holdfast stone to fix him. So your family helped with it. We knew it was a holdfast relic, but now we know that it's a relic so old that it's been around like since the time of Orion. It doesn't answer to just anybody, and that's why Ylva gave it to Helena, because it liked her and like responded to her resonance. She explains the truth of the myth to us, which is that Orion was losing the war. The necromancers were totally winning, and there's this old town, I think called Riverstone. I think it had river in the name. I didn't write it down, but yeah, there's this old town where people really followed Morrow, right? And he ended up killing them and doing the immortality spell on them for the first time. So he like drained their souls into one thing. And then when Orion showed up and found that and was fighting back against Morrow and the necromancers, something happened where like the souls exploded basically and fought back. And that was the fire. Like the souls of the victims, they're the ones that killed all the necromancers. But Orion was like, nobody's ever gonna believe that that's what happened. So the far easier thing is for me to take credit for it and just pretend like I did it myself. So this means that Luke has been waiting for a miracle that never even happened. And when Helena points that out, Ylva is like, yeah, dude, I've been making the miracles for him, okay? At this point, Ylva is like, you just need to kill him. Okay, he doesn't want you. He never actually wanted you. He's been playing you for a fool. You're just a toy that he winds up and watches spin. But Helena insists that she can't betray him now. Not when he hasn't given them a reason to not trust him. Like at this point, he's done everything he said he was gonna do. He's gone above and beyond. Yes, he's an asshole, but he's giving them valuable info. So Ylva's like, all right, you have a month. If you can present him on his knees, crawling, willing to do anything, I'll let you keep him. Otherwise, they're gonna send his little spy report file tomorrow and then let him handle it. And listen, this was something on my second read that I thought about, but now knowing what we know about Blackthorn and how when he said, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, Morrow turned him into a vicious killing machine. Why would you even consider sending the file to Morrow to say that Kane is a spy when he's already so deadly from the array? That just feels like a crazy choice, because they could really turn him into a monster, and they do. They do that later with him becoming the High Reeve. Just seems like we should just kill him ourselves at that point. We've made it to another solstice party, but this time it's like warm and cozy and everybody's happy. There's plenty of food. The wine is spiced correctly. It's strange. Helena's still not having a good time. She checks on Titus again and tries to use her new animancy skills to see if there's anything she could do. It freaks him out a little bit because it's, you know, it's a little painful, it's a little scary. And he like pushes her away and makes her stop. But she realizes in that moment that it could be done. Penny essentially tells Helena that she's a sweet, dumb immigrant girl who doesn't understand anything. And if she just believed in the gods a little bit more, she could be happier like them. But she doesn't blame her for being that way because it's just how she grew up. She just doesn't know any better. Oh, it was so condescending. It had me fucked up. Oh, so annoying. Something about this conversation clicks everything into place in Helena's mind, and she realizes abruptly, without any doubt, that Kane was right. They have been using her for this one final trick, and they'll get rid of her too when the time comes. So now she really doesn't want to turn on him because it's clear to her that they're at least on the same side. She still thinks maybe he has other motives that she doesn't know about yet, but in terms of the resistance versus them, they're on the same side. She gets trapped on the couch for a picture with Soren and Luke, and it will come back to haunt our nightmares. But she feels like she doesn't fit with them anymore, and she's just really uncomfortable. Like, at one point, these boys were some of the most important people in her life, and none of them know each other anymore. Luke, though, knows that something is wrong. He's so good at reading her, and so he begs her to tell him the truth because he wants to know. He wants to help her and be her friend. She finally admits to him that it just makes her uncomfortable and nervous to see everybody being so happy. And he says that he knows it's strange, but like, it's a good thing. Like, they're supposed to enjoy these moments. And he's like, soon the war is going to be over and we're going to go on our trip and we're going to explore and I'm going to get to see where you're from. I can't wait for you to take me to your home. And the way he actually phrases it is that like, he wants to take her home. Like, he wants to make sure she gets to see where she's from again, because at this point, I think she's been in Palladia since she was like 11. So she hasn't been home in forever. But she interrupts him and is like, Luke, I need you to let that dream go. We're never going to do that. After the war, you and I aren't going to be friends anymore. And he is so hurt. He's like, what are you talking about? What are you, of course we are. You and I, we're friends for life. And she's like, no, that girl that you were friends with died. She's gone. You need to let her go. He doubles down though and is like, absolutely the fuck not. Like, I'm not letting you go. Are you crazy? There was something so painfully sweet about how like boyish he felt here, because they're deep in the war at this point, right? But suddenly it felt like they were the little 16-year-olds in school together still. And it was just such a sweet, like, he's so genuine. You understand him more in part 2, and I think these moments where he's being sweet, you just really see why it was so easy for her to love him so much. She wanders away from the party and back to the outpost in the snow because she feels like she doesn't have anywhere to go. She was just gonna go hide there for a little while, not thinking anything of it, but then all of a sudden Kane just like bursts into the room and is like, what is it? What's wrong? Remember when he said that she should never call him because he just wouldn't come? Yeah, he's got an eyeball camera up at the outpost, so he saw her wander in looking kind of upset and then rushed from where he was to come and check on her. Anyway, of course he acts pissy though. He's not going to tell her that he was worried, and the fact that he was worried makes him angry, as we've come to learn. So she makes up like a quick half lie and is like, I was just worried about you. And he's like, okay, is this goodbye? She quickly corrects herself and is like, no, I'm just having a bad night. And I don't know, I got confused and I got worried and I just wanted to make sure you were still gonna be here when I got here. She awkwardly grabs him in like a half hug, and instead of pushing her away, he like pats her shoulder a little bit, and that only makes it worse. So then she starts crying and he's like, oh my God, what is happening? She's just crying, not hugging him, but just sort of standing in front of him, holding on to him, crying. And she's like, I think it would be really ungrateful of you to die because I made you that medical kit, and so you're not allowed to do that yet. And that like makes him like laugh, and he like steps into her and hugs her for the first time and is like, well, since you asked, like I guess I'll try not to. She sees the significance in him coming to check on her, even though it wasn't Resistance business and it was dangerous. So she promises not to do it again unless it's legitimate. And he says that she's given her word and he trusts her to keep it. So now she's even more hung up on the fact that he really does trust her now, and she's like, I can't kill him, I can't turn on him, I have a month. They start officially training together, and she is really bad at hand-to-hand combat. She's even worse at weapons, but he wants her to learn hand-to-hand first, because if she can do decently that way, then maybe they can start adding the weapons in. They have a moment where he pins her down and she's like under him trying to get out, and she like squirms a little bit, and he immediately gets off of her and he's like, I would recommend never attempting to escape that way ever again. And she, over her head, it just goes right over her head, because at this point she has no reason to think that he likes her. She thinks the kiss was fake, like all of it. She's dumb. In this thing with him, she's dumb, because how did you not realize? How did you not see that? One afternoon, while they're fighting, she finally does best him and like manages to get him slightly pinned with her hand over his heart and a knife at his throat. And she is excited, like it like happens, and then they're sitting there like frozen, like panting for breath, and she's like, oh my God, I did it, this is amazing, like thinking that he's gonna be proud of her. And he just looks back at her and is like, just like that, just push in, it's right there. So he 100% thinks that she's gonna kill him. Like, he's prepared, he's literally just under her, prepared to die. This is the moment where she realizes that the thing that has been holding him back from liking her or not liking her this whole time has been that he expected her to betray him. That was never even a thought that entered her mind. The entire time this has been going on, she has known that she was never going to be able to do that, right? Full stop, he thought she would. So it just crushes her. Like, it makes her so sad to know that that's what he thinks of her. And so she kisses him. So this whole time, this whole time, they've both just been watching the other going, any day now, they'll turn on me. And I know it, so I'm just gonna prep for it in advance. Guys, mental prison, and they're both in it. They designed the prisons themselves. I'm exhausted. I know they're tired, okay? Because I'm exhausted. Anyway, once she knows that this is the thing that's been holding him back, she kisses him, testing the theory. And sure enough, he's like, yes! And almost immediately starts kissing her back. It puts everything into perspective for her. And so she realizes that, like, yes, he was lying in the beginning, and he never wanted her and he never liked her while they were at school. But then over time, she really has worn him down, and she's gotten under his skin more than he thought she was going to. And now here they are. So she is in this moment playing into the desire that she knows he regrets, but assumes that he wants. Like, she's giving him what she thinks he wants in this moment. However, we're gonna come to find out that Kane genuinely likes her. So this first actual sex scene between them is very quick and rushed and kind of aggressive, but not in like a violent way, if you get me. It's not that he's punishing her for making him fall for her. That's how she views it. Like, she thinks he's like angry that this has happened. It's more so that he's been holding himself back from her for months. and it all just snaps. And when he thinks, oh, thank God she likes me too, it happens really quickly. And she like matches his energy. So it's not, tell us this later, but had she been like, wait, I don't want to do it this way, he'd have stopped immediately. He thought she was into it. So like his version of events for this first time is that like, yeah, it's rushed, but she wants it like that too. So again, it's very sad because they're both unreliable narrators to each other and they don't tell each other everything they're thinking, but then they assume that they understand each other completely, and we end up in situations like this where he's gonna be so sad. I do want to make it clear that she does enjoy it, like even though it's not necessarily how she wants it to happen, she likes being with him. So she does not regret that they have sex in this moment or that it's fast or whatever. Like it's just a lot very quickly. And it is her first time, which he doesn't know. He thinks that she's been with Luke and Soren. Like that's the impression that he has of her, is that like those are her boyfriends. So he never even considered that this was her first time. And when he realizes it afterwards, he's pretty horrified. And this is what I'm saying, where it's like, had she asked for something different, he would have been different, because he literally out loud says, I didn't realize, like, I would have been gentler. I'm sorry. Like, he didn't mean for that to happen. So of course, because they both have these conflicting feelings where he feels like he hurt her and didn't mean to, and she wanted him to hurt her because she feels like she doesn't deserve to like being with him. It's a freaking shitstorm of emotions in their heads. They end up ruining it and arguing. What else are they gonna do? That doesn't last for long though, because she was right, and getting him to snap physically means that he very quickly snaps emotionally as well. So he just word vomits the truth about everything. Basically, he's been playing chess the whole time. He knew they were trying to play up his like fake obsession traits, which they're not fake, baby. They're not fake, okay? You do have that. But the obsession with her was fake. And so he was like, I'll just let them think I'm leaning into it. And he went with it because he thought it would be entertaining, like watching her try to make him like her. And then, oh no, it worked. She still thinks he's lying about all of this, and when he brings up his mom, she's like, oh, boo-hoo. She died of a heart attack, Kane. You're lying, okay? That's not the real reason. Just tell me the truth. He angrily explains that, like, yeah, it is, girl. So we learn that his mom was tortured for his and his dad's mistakes. She was kept in a cage. She was the one that Bennett and Morrow were, like, experimenting on. He killed Apollo to get them to stop doing that. And it, like, they did. But then his dad got in trouble, and so then she got in more trouble because of that. He wanted her to leave the country and like arranged for her to get out, but she wouldn't go without him. And one night she just sees too much, like with him being bloody and like doing things that she doesn't want him to have to do, and it just works her up into a tizzy, and she has a heart attack in his arms and dies. So that's where all the hatred that his dad feels for him comes from, because not only did he weaken her as a baby, but then later on in life, he still killed her in the dad's eyes. And so Kane feels that way too. He feels like it's all his fault. He's like actively breaking down while he's telling this story. And he ends up like, he's like leaning against the wall, like kind of like hiding his face. And then he ends up like pressing his hands into his eyes to like keep from crying. But when she says that she's so sorry, because it hits her that like hearing it out loud for the first time and like all of it coming together, she understands that this is the truth. But when she says that she's so sorry that this happened, he's immediately angry again. And he's like, I don't need your sympathy. And then she reaches for him, and he is so broken down by everything that has happened that he just collapses into her arms and finally starts crying. He says, I can't do this again. I can't care for someone again. I can't take it. While she's holding him, she's just repeatedly telling him that she's so sorry over and over and over again, because Kane Farron was fully human to her. She'd slipped through his walls and peeled away the defensive layers of malice and cruelty, and found that there he carried a broken heart. She could use that. I love my evil girl. Women in male-dominated fields, we love to see it. I love a crash out. You think he's done his big one here? Nope. It's gonna get worse. After he stops crying, his first question is literally, why did you kiss me? What was the point in all of this? She explains that she never realized she was gonna be expected to kill him. So when she said that she was gonna give herself to him now and after the war, she meant it. She literally thought it meant forever. He wants to know, and he asks this like very quietly, did she think he was playing both sides of the war? And she says no, but it doesn't really matter what she thinks because the resistance, that's what they believe, and so that's what she has to kind of go off of. Hey guys, it's Halloween now. I'm pretty freaking tired, but we got a few more things to film, so we're gonna get back into it. This script, there's like 5 hours worth of footage already. Hopefully, I mean, I'm gonna cut it down obviously, but yeah, I filmed so much at this point and we have more than 10 pages to go. So let's just get right into it. Helena then admits that she's been given a month to kill him, and so he's immediately like, oh, so this was like a pity goodbye thing. Great, awesome. And the way he says it is like super dismissive, super mean, and they're still like on the floor together, right? Like she's not fully dressed yet, and this is how he's talking. So she's immediately like very upset, and she says she hated the way he'd switch, one moment vulnerable, the next so bitterly cruel. And again, she's just not, like, it doesn't click for her where that behavior shift is coming for him, so it's just confusing, and she's just constantly in sort of a whirlwind of his emotions. And at least where I've gotten so far, she's not figuring it out. She's not like recognizing like where that comes from for him, but I digress. She quickly explains that if he can prove that he'll stay loyal to them, they won't have to do anything to him. And he's kind of like, oh, one master for another? Okay, great. That sounds awesome. Ugh, and kind of brushes it off. And then she gets really sad. She apologizes again, and she says, do you want me to do it, or does it not matter how it happened? And he immediately scoffs and is like, yeah, you lost your chance. It won't be you now. They get quiet, and then he goes, so what happens to you once I'm gone? She admits that she doesn't know, because like she said, she never made any other plans. He locks in on that instantly and is like, right. So what do they want me to do? Is it like actual crawling, or are they gonna give me like a more productive thing to prove myself with? He's like, why would you suddenly reconsider? And he's like, because I just realized how marketable I made you, which is a damn lie, okay? He can't even see past the end of his own nose. That's how down bad he is. She goes to the safe house to clean up, and Crowther meets her there. She's all rumpled up and a little bloody, so he's immediately like, whoa, oh my god, did he hurt you? She quickly is like, no, it was just forceful, it was just abrupt, it was rushed, like it was not on purpose, like he didn't hurt me, he didn't do anything, it's fine. Do not think that about him. And Crowther's like, I'm already doing it. He's more than a little uncomfortable with the fact that she actually went through with it, because he doesn't realize that she has actual feelings for Farron. Like, he hasn't put that together the way Ylva has. She then immediately tells Crowther everything that Kane just told her. All of those secrets, she just blabs them right to him. And I understand that, like, that's her job and that's kind of the point, but I was still shocked that she tells him everything, like, including the fact that Kane cries in her arms. She's just like, all of it. Damn, girl, that's why he didn't want to be vulnerable with you. He can't trust your ass not to tell people. Ultimately feels really cold and empty after all of this, because she's sick of like the fake empathy that everybody seems to have for her. Like, the resistance wants her to do this stuff with Kane, but then when she does it, they feel bad about it. Kane is nice to her and then mean to her and then nice to her again. Nobody feels like a real person she can talk to. And even though now she's done what she was told and succeeded in the mission and saved Kane's life, it feels like it doesn't even matter because it was all just a ploy anyway. Like, none of it was real. Crowther ends up telling her that she's the most exceptional asset that the Eternal Flame possesses, but he's really sorry about that. The next time she goes to meet with Kane, Crowther comes with her, and they have like a very intense like bird dance stare-off situation going on. They both send Helena out of the room, and as the door is closing behind her, she hears Crowther go, beg, and that's it. She doesn't know anything else. And then so she paces around in the outpost like terrified and hoping that they don't kill each other. And then when she goes back in, Kane like won't look at her. Crowther is like, good work. Things go south immediately after that, because Kane goes into like full avoidant shutdown mode, and he just refuses to speak or even look at her every time that they're together. As you can imagine, this is very confusing for her, even though it's just like the extreme of his old behavior. He was already doing this kind of stuff to her. Now he's just ramped it up as deep as he can go. After weeks of this weird silent treatment. She begs him to look at her and he snaps, "Is this not enough for you? Is there something else you want too?" And then when she says, "Kane, I'm so sorry," he tells her to stop using his name because he hates the way it sounds on her tongue. And her apologies aren't going to do anything to fix what she's done to him. They're asking him for more and more, so he's consistently like more run down and ragged, which just makes his temper worse. And it's all just sort of feeding itself, and both of them are just miserable. And then there's another attack on Luke's team, and this time Luke is kidnapped. Lila is horrifically injured. So basically what happened was there was some kind of explosion. Soren and Lila got knocked down. Lila got bitten again, like attacked. Soren got knocked out and Luke got taken. So then when Soren woke up, he saw that Luke was gone, panicked, and grabbed Lila and came back with her. She was injured with that resonance blocking alloy, which they're now calling nullium. They have to do a really elaborate manual surgery to get the metal out, but they do, and they're able to stabilize her. Soren's really distraught and injured himself. He loses an eye in this attack and then also re-breaks his arm, but Helena is able to fix that for him quicker. We get this horrible visual of Rhea sitting between the twins' beds with her husband, who is also unwell. She's like looking between them, saying that all she ever wanted was like a beautiful, happy family, and now all she has left is pieces of them. They insist that Kane be told to go and get Luke for them, whether or not his cover is blown in the process. He's supposed to do anything possible to get Luke back. Kane isn't surprised by this and just accepts the order, but Helena is really sick over it, and she's like, "Hold on, just wait, I need to talk to you." And then she brings up the moment when she kissed him, hoping that like they can finally talk about it, but he just spirals instantly and gets like viciously mean. He says, "I used to think the circumstances of my servitude to the High Necromancer as cruel an enslavement as anyone could conceive, but I must admit, it pales beside you. At least before, I could console myself that it wasn't my fault. Acceptance was the best I could do to keep my mother safe. It's different when I have no one to blame but myself." And then he starts to explain why he did what he did, which is, "I envied you, how you credited me with goodness and failed to realize that it was a setup from the very beginning. When you begged for a chance to heal me, I gave in. When you touched me, I didn't push you away. I thought, where's the harm? It all ends soon enough, and life has been cold for such a long time." She starts crying. "By the time I realized I'd miscalculated, you'd already forced your way in. You were so obvious, but that only made it worse, knowing you'd let me do anything to you in the hope it would save everyone else, even the people who'd sold you in the first place. At least when I sold my soul, my mother prostrated herself, begging to take my place. After you nearly bled to death here, I thought, at least I can keep her alive. She deserves to have someone who cares enough to try to keep her alive. I thought eventually you'd give up. But you will do anything to save the people you feel responsible for. Of course you'd weaponize your guilt in order to use mine. I'm sure there's something poetic in it all, but right now all I feel is a new set of manacles. So forgive me if I dislike looking at you. I'm still adjusting to the way these new ones chafe." Eee, it's bad. It's bad. It's really not good. Once Helena goes home after this, still distraught because that really fucks her up, Soren has organized a rescue mission and he wants to take her with them. He has this girl with them named Sophia who is like younger, and she says she knows her way around the tunnels. She can get them in to where Luke is being kept and then back out without anybody finding them. And Helena realizes, oh, this is one of Crowther's spies, so he must be behind this. Like, he sent her to sort of instigate Soren into doing this, so it's okay that I'm being asked to go because Crowther's behind it. Soren tells the group that they need Helena to go because they need the best healer, and like if something has happened to Luke, he wants to make sure he can be fixed. But he quietly tells her, I also want you to use necromancy on me if anything happens, because his sole purpose right now is avenging Lila and getting Luke back, no matter the cost. She runs back to Shisio and gives him a piece of paper with all the details of the plan written on it, and she tells him how to get to the outpost, how to put the paper like in the room where she meets with Kane. And she's like, if you don't want to do that, okay, I understand. Take it to Ilva instead because I can't make this choice. Meaning that she can't pick between Kane and Luke. She doesn't know how to decide. He takes the paper from her and is like, I always knew you were very interesting. And then she runs away from him and we don't know what he's going to decide to do. They break into the tunnels and it goes reasonably well. They also brought Sebastian with them, so it's all of Luke's like surviving team members plus Sebastian and then Helena and Sophia. Sebastian and Soren just cut their way through the enemies, like rocking and rolling, everybody's doing what they need to do, it's going really well. They find some other prisoners, and Helena recognizes one of them named Wagner as somebody who Crowther's other tortured people were like talking about, so she convinces Soren to free him so that they can take him with them too. They finally reach a room that's being guarded by like one giant necrothrall man, and it turns out that it's a lich and it's Kane's dad. They kill him and break into the room, and they find Luke on an operating table, like open, and all of his organs are like rotted and black inside of him. I loved these lines about Soren. Soren had been waiting for this moment. He shot across the room, his weapon sweeping into a long, curving blade. He killed everyone violently. There was nothing quick or clean about it. Warm blood splattered across her face as Helena went for Luke. I love him. Luke is alive, but she can't heal him completely in this moment, and she also is struggling to wake him up because whatever they've done to him, he's super unwell now. She has to funnel power into him, and then she gives him some of the medicines that were only meant for Kane, hoping that she can undo the damage that it's going to cause him later once they get him home safe. While she's doing this, her ring starts to burn frantically on her finger over and over again. Alarms start going off in the prison, so now they have to run, and Soren's like, fuck it, we're gonna carry Luke. But she gives him that stimulant, and it does wake him up enough that he can get on his feet. His first thought is of Lila when he wakes up, and Helena is like, oh no. So he did give himself up to save her. That's not good. They start fighting their way out of the prison, and Luke is also fighting, even though he should not be holding a weapon. He's insisting on helping because he doesn't want everybody to die for him. So they're fighting their way out. They get back to the room that has, it's like they're underground, like in like the sewer system. And so they get into like a certain chamber that has all these like rushing waterfalls and stuff. And Blackthorn appears with just a horde of necrothralls and the people who want to be undying, and just says, kill everybody and kidnap Luke. They bring chimeras too, so it's just overrun instantly and things go from bad to worse in seconds. I loved this whole battle sequence, okay? It's a very long set of chapters and it's just so good. Start to finish, so good. There's lots of really fun dialogue and like small moments between all the different groups of characters, and I really enjoyed getting to see everybody doing their own things inside the room. Sophia is killed when Wagner literally pushes her into the path of danger in order to get away from it, because he is nothing but a little bitch. Soren is fighting Blackthorn by himself, and he almost gets bitten by a chimera. Luke yells for him so that he sees, because he's blind, I think on his right side actually. So the chimera is coming for him. Luke yells for him from his blind spot. He turns, kills the chimera, and Blackthorn nearly chops him in half with his axe. So he goes down. Luke screams. He grabs Soren, drags him out of the water and to Helena, and is like, you can heal him, right? Heal him, I'll cover you, and starts fighting again around her. It's an injury that cannot be fixed, right? Like, it's really, really bad. Soren knows it, and he's dying in her arms looking up at her, and gives her that final permission to use his body. Even though it's her first time using necromancy, Soren was right in assuming that she would be really good at it because she's such a good vivimancer. She does it instinctually. It also helps that she knew Soren, so she understands what his body should look and feel and move like, so she's able to just wake him up. And she says, you can't rest yet. You have to protect Luke. Soren knew her. She could feel it, the familiarity she represented. It was horrible, feeling this abomination of life in her arms. For all her efforts, this was a shadow. Soren was a puppet she'd slipped her hand inside. After so many years of healing, necromancy was effortless. There was nothing to hurt. She simply told Soren's body that it could not die. He would fight as he'd always fought. He would protect them, because he knew how to do that. He stood and helped her up, weapon already in hand. Muscle memory lingered, like a sleepwalker's habits, even when the person was gone. Ah! Luke sees him and instantly knows what she's done, because he's a good friend. He can tell when something's wrong with her. He can tell when his best friend is a zombie. The others also kind of know that he's probably a zombie, but nobody stops it because they're overwhelmed and dying. So everybody's getting injured. They're all kind of fighting frantically. Helena is dealing with the mental connection that she has to Soren's body. So she's fighting, and then she can see and feel everything happening to him too, sort of off and on. It keeps like flashing back and forth in her mind. And she ends up getting pretty badly injured because of this like lack of control over her own stuff that she's seeing. And he is being torn apart. But because of her orders to fight and protect Luke, he can't stop, and he just keeps fighting, even as they are literally clawing him apart. Blackthorn gets to Helena, realizing that she's the necromancer, so he breaks her hands and her wrists, like just snaps them like little twigs. This is trigger warning. He's also planning to SA her with the wound in her stomach. Like he starts doing stuff to the wound in her stomach. The bear. Before it can get like really bad, a rope wraps around his neck and yanks him off of her and through the water. And he's like scrambling for it, but he can't get it off. She says it's like a rope of metal. I wonder who that could be. She sees another Undying and realizes that they're attacking all the people that have been attacking her. And they just decimate the entire battle. She realizes it's Kane. Sort of immediately. She's like, that has to be my guy. How did he get here? What is going on? The last thing he does is like throw up a handful of iron shards and like ping them around, like that guy with the arrow from Guardians of the Galaxy. He pings all the little shards through the air and then calls them back to himself and just kills everybody. He stomps through the water to her. She's like, what are you doing here? He goes, you idiot, and then yanks her up and hugs her. His resonance like freaks out while he's hugging her, and he starts suffocating everybody, including her friends. And so she begs him to stop and save them. He does, but he still knocks them out so that he can like safely talk to her and check on her without everybody seeing her with him. Takes her to a safer location so that he can focus on fixing her, and has her talk him through how to heal all of the wounds. He nearly touches that one on her stomach that Blackthorn was messing with, and she freaks out. And after he realizes why and like what Blackthorn was doing to her, he completely softens and is like telling her exactly what he's doing, like where his hands are, how he's gonna touch her, what he's gonna do, every single step of the way until he's finally done. I think this is one of the reasons why he bothers me so much. Like when people clearly have such a wonderful understanding of emotional intelligence and then they still use it for violence, I'm like, oh, so you're the devil, okay. Once she's finally healed and he can take a breath, he looks at her and is like, don't ever go on another mission. His brand of like deadpan overprotection is so funny to me because he's so serious, but it's just, it reads so funny. She's like, my guy, that's not your decision to make. And he's like, yes, it fucking is. If anything happens to you, I will go rogue so fast you'll miss it if you blink, baby girl. The only reason I'm doing any of this now is to protect you and keep you safe. While he's saying this, he realizes, oh my God, once again, she had no idea that this was the new deal. And so he tells her, Helena, this was the new deal. With Crowther, he's basically said, you know, at this point, all of my loyalty to the Eternal Flame hinges on Helena. So either you keep her alive or I break my leash. And it clicks for him that the reason why she's been so upset this whole time is because she really genuinely thought he hated her now. And it's like, no shit, dumbass. Like when you treat your girlfriend like crap, she's gonna believe you. Anyway, Helena kisses him again. This time though, finally, it's actually a nice kiss. And he like holds her face and keeps her close, and it's reciprocated on both sides, finally. She lets herself savor the moment because it's all clicking for her now too, and she's finally starting to understand his stupid behavior. She has to stop it, and she's like, I have to go, I have to get the others out of here, we've got to save Luke, because Luke is just passed out with everybody else at this point. He tells her how to get out and then kisses her again and says that if she needs him, use the ring to call him. Look at Mr. I'm not a dog, being such a good boy. She wakes Sebastian up first, and he knows that she used necromancy on Soren, but he really doesn't seem that upset with her. He's just so tired. He understands now that that's why Soren brought her with them, and they share a moment of heartbreak because his body is gone. It was so sweet. He like looks up at her and then sort of looks around and is like, is he still around? And she has to be like, no, he's gone, because his body got swept down the river, and so they're never going to get him back and they're never going to be able to burn him, which means that Lila will never see her twin again in this life or the next. Why would you say that? Ugh. They get back to headquarters, but Luke is really unwell. He's feverish and angry and confused. He keeps screaming, "Out! Inside! Get out! Out!" And when he sees Helena, he like goes into a full rage at her, saying that she brought Soren back and he'll never forgive her for it. Lila comes in and is able to calm him down, but in that moment, Helena knows that her friendship with Luke is like broken forever. The council, however, after talking to everybody, convinces them all that Luke was hallucinating and he's super sick. So he thinks he saw Helena bring Soren back, but really his friend was just so injured and they couldn't save him, and it wasn't what Luke thought it was. It's not that big of a deal. Helena's not in any trouble. It still feels like a really fancy trap to her, and she doesn't really trust it. That night she can't sleep, and she's plagued with visions of Soren's last moments and how it felt to be connected to him, and it feels like all the things that he went through happened to her as well, like on her body, and she can't shake that connection. But she has nobody to talk about it with except for Kane, and she can't get to him. She stumbles out, it's like snowing and stuff because it's like winter at this point. So she stumbles out intending to go talk to him, and then she's like, "Ugh, I can't do that. Like that puts him in danger. It's an unnecessary thing for me to call him right now. I can't do that." So she starts trying to go home, but it's so cold and she's so tired that she ends up passing out in the snow. She hallucinates Kane coming to get her. We know as the reader that he's actually there getting her, like it's very clear that it's really happening, but she's like telling herself that she's hallucinating because she doesn't believe that he would have been able to find her that fast, or like why would he have come looking for her. And then also she hallucinates like a giant wolf with wings that they fly on, like he picks her up on this wolf with wings, and she's like, clearly I'm hallucinating. I died in the snow and this is some weird final dream I'm having. That's not it though, it's Kane, and he realizes what's going on with her and explains that she's going into shock, and he's super upset that her first time using necromancy was with somebody that she knew, but he says that it'll pass, it's not gonna last forever, she just has to let the connection go. While they're flying away, she says, "Do you think this is what my subconscious thinks I want? To fly away from the war with you?" He asks what she actually wants, and she says that she doesn't want to feel lonely anymore. She wants to love somebody without feeling like she's going to hurt them because everybody she loves dies. Kane takes her all the way to his house, which is up in the mountains. So he has like a city apartment and then a country estate, which is Spirefell, and then this other house, which is like up in the mountains. And I think it's like a penthouse or like a hotel-esque, like apartment-esque. I don't know. You guys tell me, but I pictured like a weird apartment building kind of thing. But I guess since he has Amaris with him, spoilers, the wolf bird has a name. Maybe it's more like a townhouse situation up in the mountains. I don't know. He says that she doesn't have to be alone anymore. And she's like, "No, don't do that. I can't care about you. If I care about you, then I can't use you. And using you keeps everybody alive." And he's like, "Okay, so use me." And then he goes to kiss her, but she pushes him away again and is like, "No, I don't want to do that. You don't deserve that. I don't want to hurt you." This whole spice scene was so sweet. He says, "You don't have to push me away to protect me. I can take it. You can stop being lonely. I won't misunderstand. I know you just want someone to be with." Helena, I'm alone too. And they finally start kissing. And again, because now they've admitted, kind of. They haven't really admitted that they like each other, but they have admitted that it's way more complicated than they were acting before, right? We're getting somewhere, is my point. And so they're finally being nice to each other. It's so like sweet and tender that she says, "This is the way I wanted it to be with you. I wanted it to be like this with you." And he apologizes, guys. It says he went very still. I'm sorry it wasn't." And then he pulls her closer. She's still sort of in hallucination land. She's not. It's the shock of everything that happened, but her thoughts are a little confused. And so she says, had he ever actually been like this? She wondered sometimes how much of her drunken memory of kissing him was real, or if she'd invented all the intimacy to replay when her life felt too void of any tenderness. Incorrect. This is Kane. This version of him is the real boy. The version of him that kissed her that night on the couch is the real boy. That's why he pisses me off so much when he's fronting and trying to be an asshole. I'm like, oh my God, it's so irritating. More, okay? He was unfathomably gentle, his touch light, and yet it made her feel as though a flame were kindled inside her, a desire that made her ache. What I really liked about this scene specifically is that there's so much focus on her pleasure, and you so very rarely see that in books in like a realistic way, okay? Because there's like the whole trope of romantasy that we don't even really need to get into. Maybe I'll do another thing about that. But I'm seeing a lot of people talk about how they hate the intimacy in this book because it's tainted by the SA scene. And it's like, I hear you. I understand that that's going to be like a deal breaker for some people. But the other scenes, they're just so well done. And they're well done in a way that you don't see in media very often. And also, just on a character level, like, thank God he made up for himself, because their first time together was not good for her at all. We have repeated dialogue in this one as well, where like he tells her to close her eyes, which is what he said to her in part 1, and that just makes that whole thing even more sad, because in this one he's doing it to help her relax, and so he was trying to do that in part 1 as well, but it's so sad. It's so sad. Also, the implications of him having to go through with it in part 1, trying to remind her about this moment from part 2 from their past, so that maybe he can trigger memories and she'll remember him so that he can stop having to do the thing in part 1. It's just so sad. It's the way she did the overlapping repeated dialogue destroys me to no end. In the morning, she is shocked to find out that it was not a dream, and she is in fact in his bed and he is holding her, like refusing to let go even in his sleep. Oh, I loved the descriptions of him in this one. He lay, arms wrapped possessively around her as though he were keeping her from being stolen, features relaxed in sleep. She studied him. What had she done? Cain Farron was a dragon, like his family before him, possessive to the point of self-annihilation, isolated and deadly, and now he held her in his arms as if she were his. The temptation to give in, to let him have her, and to love him for it, terrified her. I love it. And then, she tried to slip away as she had before, but this time his eyes snapped open. He pulled her back immediately, but then caught sight of her terrified expression. His eyes flickered, and he let go. She went still. The fear and anger that he'd inspired a year earlier had all but disappeared. The danger was still there, cast in sharper relief now that she had seen how lethal he was, because he was scary in that fight. Yet somehow knowing it made her less frightened. Now she knew how much he was holding back. Despite everything he'd achieved, this was Cain Farron using restraint. This was a mistake, she said. I shouldn't have come here. His throat dipped as he looked away. Don't worry, he said quietly. This won't complicate anything for you. You wanted someone to be with, and I was available. I know it didn't mean anything. Ugh! Helena's breath caught, and she swallowed. He wasn't just someone. To her, that was the mistake of it, what she was so scared of. Before she could even begin to invent a lie, something must have shown on her face. Her eyes always betrayed her, because his expression was withdrawn. And then, in an instant, triumph flashed across his face, and he reached for her again. Hunger and heat splintered the air like lightning. This is when we get the "you're mine" moment from him, and it's another spice scene, and it is just as good as the first one, okay? This whole little chunk of moments right here, I love it so much. I told you he's my favorite brand of possessive. I love the brooding dragon motif so much more than like the howling lone wolf or like the roaring lion. Icky. Those are icky. This one is good. So she just loses several days staying with him in the house. She's so tired, and she's finally able to like genuinely rest with like no interruptions except for him. He's able to stay with her because he's just off duty. He just happens to have a couple days off because the necromancers have such a complete and like a well-organized army that they're able to just rotate when their generals are on and off duty. She's never had a day off in her life. Like I said before, it turns out the flying wolf was real. Her name is Amaris, and she is the Chimera. My God, more of his deadpan stuff. This made me laugh so hard. Okay, he says, Amaris flies better from the roof. She's better at it now, but it used to be hard for her to get airborne. Amaris? Helena repeated slowly. The Chimera. You saw her last night. She blinked at him, a memory of an impossibly enormous, winged wolf resurfacing. I thought I'd hallucinated. He gave her a look. I told you I was getting a chimera. He just makes me laugh, guys. He's just funny. Now that he's accepted that they're like in a relationship, Like, as far as he's concerned, they are in a relationship. She is his, he is hers. They belong to each other. Like, that's where they're at now. She's still wrapping her head around everything, but he's nice now. 100% soft and sweet and funny, because he's not fronting anymore. He's just being himself. And it's literally like a freaking switch flip in him, where from one page to the next, he's like brooding angry boy to sweet, lovable, adorable. And she's like, what the fuck? She's trying to figure out everything still. And so she asks him like, hey, when did you know that I was maybe gonna have to kill you? And he's like, oh honey, the whole time. Jesus Christ, you were so naive. I told you, I thought it was kind of cute in the beginning, and I did kind of like that you wanted to save me. Sorry. She tells him that his father isn't dead. All the things are like coming back to her about the fight. So she tells him that his father isn't dead because remember they saw him in that necrothrall body. And he's like, no, that's not possible. If he was still alive, then he would know about my mother and he would have come back because that would have destroyed him. Tells her that the stories about his dad being really cruel and like mean to the mom were all fake. Like he says that he just adored her and loved her, and like they got married because they were in love with each other, not because she was pregnant. He did everything for her when she got sick, and that's the reason why he's kind of so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs now, is because watching her get sick and like slowly die was killing him. So they come to the understanding that like if his dad is still alive, he's not been told that the mom is dead, and it's very complicated because he's been, you know, somewhere with Morrow, but at this point Kane's been alone for a while without both parents, like thinking that his dad was dead. Now that they're casually spilling tea, he finally asks why he's not dead, because the array should have killed him. It killed everybody else, and for some reason he's still alive. So she tells him about using the stone to save him in kind of vague detail. She doesn't fully explain it. But she does say that like it was a holdfast heirloom, and so Ylva's kind of annoyed with her. And the punishment was that she would have to kill him, but then obviously she got out of that, so she guesses everything worked out in the end. And he's like, this is your version of everything working out in the end, really? This hurts her because she realizes that he wishes that she had just killed him when she had the chance. And so she's immediately like, okay, you're right, I'm sorry. And she tries to get out of the bed, and he grabs her and is like, where are you going? Get back here. And she's like, look, can I at least put my clothes back on before you get angry? He's like, I'm not angry. I'm upset because you don't even seem to realize that the resistance is draining you like a parasite. You're so hung up on everybody else that you can't even see it when I'm focusing on you. Now it's her turn to get upset, and she says, you think I don't know I'm expendable when you see fit to remind me of it at every turn? Well, you don't have any right to be angry about that when you're just as much a part of it as any of them. You knew what was happening and that I didn't, and you still chose to be as cruel as you were. At least Ylva and Crowther manipulated me for a reason. When were you even that kind? He apologizes again, and she laughs at him and is like, yes, you've apologized before, but you don't change, so it doesn't really mean anything. And this motherfucker goes, you're right. He's about to tell her everything, so prepare yourselves. I'm sorry for that too. I never meant for any of it to go so far. I knew the mission you'd been sent with, and I was sure I'd be immune, but realizing it was all real for you, when it would work and I'd find myself falling for the trap I'd chosen, I'd do whatever it took to make you stop. It hadn't occurred to me that they wouldn't tell you. She says they thought I'd be more convincing that way. He nods. I thought if I was just cruel enough, you'd give up, that you'd have a limit, that once I found it, you'd stop finding ways to emotionally blindside me. I spent such a long time waiting to be betrayed, I didn't want to care when it happened. I was trying to hurt you, but I am so sorry that I did. We get a little more insight into her too, even though we've been in her head. She says, I don't know why I kept trying. You just had these moments when I could see how little of you was real. When you'd forget to pretend, you always seemed so lonely. And I was lonely too. I used to think that we were the reverse of each other. Now, I can't help feeling like we're mostly the same. They like hold hands and kiss again, and then he says, you're a far better person than I am. This world doesn't deserve you at all. They sort of argue a little bit about the fact that she's a healer and he's a killer, and she feels conflicted about it because like on one hand, like he's kind of right, but then at the same time, the war is making them do things. So like Kane could stop, right? He could stop, but the price for that would be that he would be killed. There's this weird line that they walk where she's like, everything you did, you know, before your mother was killed was for your mom, like to protect her. And then once she died, you were protecting yourself, and now you're protecting me. So Is it awful, the stuff you've done? Yeah, but again, how is it any worse than me healing people just for them to die a second time? I think it's more complicated than that. I think the book just has a lot of gray area, and especially because it's a war book, one of the points is that both sides are wrong. Like, there's issues on both sides of it. He wants to keep her. Now that they've finally gotten her away from everything, this has been the best couple days of his life, okay? He's never been so calm, even though she is just in his house. Like, if somebody was, I guess he would just kill them, probably, but like, he's so calm and collected, and that's one of the reasons why he's so level-headed and normal this whole time. Why would he be angry right now? He's in control of everything. I said what I said. I said what I said. He does end up flying her home, though. And we find out when he introduces her to Amaris that part of why his vivimancy skills and his healing skills have been getting better is because he's been using them on Amaris. Like, the chimeras, if you'll remember, are like hastily spliced together and they don't live very long. And she even said to him, you know, I would just take it apart, like just pull on the threads holding it together and it'll fall apart even quicker. And instead, he tried to like remap it internally so that like she wouldn't be in pain all the time. And so we learned that while he was being such a dick to Helena while his back was messed up, that was when he was also dealing with Amaris, and she was like a little demon and trying to bite him constantly. But it was because she was in so much pain. So once that connected for him, he realized that they were alike and she helped him calm down. And so he's just been healing this little wolf bird demon. We don't know where the wings came from. Who knows? He begs her to stay one more time. I loved this little moment. Kane followed her. Now that the introduction to Amaris and the journey were over, there was an undeniable look of resentment in his eyes again, as if letting her return to headquarters was not yet something he was convinced of. Helena pretended not to notice as she headed for the gate, but it only made his mood darken. Finally, she stopped. What is it? Don't go, he said softly. You know I have to. He shook his head. No, I don't. They don't care about you. He tries to convince her that the resistance, the universe, they don't care about her pain. Like, she's just going to keep getting hurt for them and it's never going to amount to anything. And she says, you're wrong because I'm part of the universe. A tiny piece, I admit, maybe never an important or mathematically significant one, but still a piece. You and I are not separate from it. No one is. It matters to me. Everyone who's died and everyone who will and everyone who suffers. As long as I exist, I will always care. And that means that part of the universe does. Doesn't that make it a little brighter? Not to him. Not to him, girl. Crowther is pissed that she was gone for so long. Turns out he was not the one to plan that mission, okay? So Sophia went rogue. Sophia is Ivy's sister, and when Ivy finds out that Sophia is dead, she goes off on Crowther and attacks him and then runs away into the tunnel system. And Crowther calls people and is like, hey, we got a rogue one, get rid of her. Also, he's no longer using his arm again, just out of spite. I hate that man. The prisoner that they saved that killed Sophia, he's the one who helped Morrow figure out the array for the spell to make the Undying. He explains and confirms that the Undying are like a source of power for him because it binds their souls into a collective power similar to the way the Holdfast Stone worked. And in exchange, they got his skills with necromancy, but nobody understands why that happened. It was an accident. Morrow didn't intend for that. Lila is sanctioned because of her feelings for Luke. This is when they kind of confirm that Sebastian and Apollo were definitely, something was going on. Something was going on with them, okay? They were not, we never get confirmation if they were like a couple. We don't know if Luke has a mom somewhere or if like, because it's not really said that Sebastian is like his other dad. So we don't really know. We don't really know. But definitely something was going on there. And it's a problem where Lila's concerned because she's a girl. Penny runs into Helena again, and she is on Luke's team, and so she was there when everything went down in the sewers. She saw Soren be reanimated. She realizes that that's what happened, even though they told the council and everything, oh yeah, no, Luke was wrong. Luke kind of misunderstood that. It's fine. She tells Helena, no, I know what you did. And I appreciate it because I'm glad that I didn't die, but also it was a sin. And if you repent, maybe the gods will forgive you. And Helena's like, oh my God, do you people hear yourselves? We almost died, and it was Soren's choice. He wanted that. Helena misses Kane like crazy, and they go a whole week without seeing each other. She resists the urge to call him because she doesn't want to keep putting him in like pointless danger. But then when she goes back to the outpost to see him again, she's suddenly nervous. Like she has missed him the whole week, and then when it's time to see him again, she's like, damn, what if I imagine all of that? What if he's evil again? I don't want to deal with that. He could be so unpredictable. Every moment of softness between them tended to be followed by its direct inversion. That's not good, Helena. That's like really bad. That's why I'm worried about you getting brain damage, girl. A necrothrall comes to get her, and she's like, see? I knew he would do this, thinking that he's silent treatmenting her again. But just kidding, this one calls her name. Like it speaks, and it's not supposed to be able to do that, but it speaks, and takes her to the fancy room instead of the little tiny room. It takes her to like the panic room. Double psych again. He is so down bad. The second she comes in the room, he's like on her. It just starts kissing her like crazy, and his resonance is like all over her body, mapping her for injuries, which is what she used to do to him. Now he's doing it frantically, trying to make sure she's okay. And she's like, okay, good. Love the confirmation that he missed me too. Now imagine the shock on my face when he actually admitted it out loud. Groundbreaking. He got his wish about her not being able to go outside anymore, except to meet with him, but he didn't realize when he made that demand that foraging was so important to her, because she said it was part of her work for the hospital, and that's true, but the other side of it is that it's something she used to do with her dad, so being out in nature and stuff made her feel close to him. And that's why in part 1, he was so insistent about her going outside and spending time in the garden. He tells her again that he would be more than happy to get her out, and whenever she's ready to leave, he will handle that for her. And she realizes kind of heartbrokenly that now she's in the same trap his mother was in, because she doesn't want to leave without him. And he can't go anywhere because Morrow has the device connecting them to each other. She asks him to tell her about the day that he became an Undying so that they can make sure that Wagner's story makes sense. He doesn't have a lot of memories of it, but he shares with her what he can remember. He knows that they used his servants, and that's why he reanimated them and kept them back in part 1. That's why they still live in Spirefell. The ritual bound their souls to him and then all their souls to Morrow, and he could hear them like yelling in him, which is why he tried to wake them back up. She asks if he can still hear them, and he says sometimes, but they're quieter now, which really icked me out, because what do you mean? So now we know that if they kill Morrow, it will kill all of the Undying, unless they can somehow figure out a way to unbind him. But it feels really hopeless, and Kane doesn't think it's possible. As she goes to leave this time, he gives her a second set of the daggers, because yes, he had 2 pairs made when he first gave them to her. He knew she'd lose the first one. She rebraids her hair to go home because every time they hook up, he takes her hair down. And while she's doing it, he's just like, I hate your hair like that, which is a very funny direct contrast to Soren, who was like, your hair's so much prettier when you put it up and when you braid it. Keep it out of your face so we can pretend you look like us. Helena doesn't really realize why he's saying that, so she's like, oh, I mean, I guess I could cut it if you want. And he's like, what the fuck? He wants to see her more. This is the first time they've gone a week without seeing each other. So just timeline wise, they got together like a week and a half ago, right? They've been apart for 7 days, and he is so sick over it that he's like, I'm not doing this again. I want to see you more. I'm gonna find us a place in between my house and your house, and we'll be able to meet there, okay? More often. Now that Amaris is healed and can fly so easily, he can basically just come get her whenever they want within reason. So he says, so they changed the rules on the rings, and he says if the ring burns once and she's free, he'll come and get her, and she can also call him, and if he can get away, then they can meet. And she's like, what happened to don't ever burn me? And he cuts her off with a kiss, saying, call me, and I will come. A man who yearns. Chapter 55 opens with, Kane called her often. I know that's right. He gets increasingly more anxious about her well-being. Like, it really does become a compulsion for him to check her over with his resonance. And he doesn't always believe her when she says that she's okay. He has to like look for himself and check more than once, which is why I say it feels a little more compulsive. She lets it happen and tries to not be annoyed by it, even though he's like real clingy, because she understands that it's coming from a place where like his mom lied about the extent of her injuries. So he just wants to make sure that the same thing's not happening to Helena, because he's very worried about her like being tortured in the same way and then not knowing about it. It just freaks him out. He's got a lot of PTSD. The possessiveness also becomes more and more compulsive, so there's a lot of repeated like, tell me you're all right, tell me you're okay, tell me you're mine, right? Like he needs her to say it to him over and over again. He also gets into the habit of whispering, I'm gonna take care of you. I swear, Helena, I'm always going to take care of you, over and over and over again at night while she's sleeping. He just stays up whispering it to her, even when she tries to like comfort him and get him to go to bed too. He won't do it. He'll just keep going. One night she finally asks more about his mom, and we learn more about Enid finally. So she was the first person that he ever saw be tortured, and again, he was like 15, 16 years old when this happened, if not a little younger than that, because the war was like gearing up before the murder. She never did anything in the war. It was all his dad, and then she was just obviously married into the family, and so she was kind of swept up in it, but she was never part of anything. She nearly recovered after he killed Apollo, but she just wasn't the same after everything that had been done to her. And then doctors that he brought in to look at her gave her medicine that made her catatonic. He didn't like making her take them because it felt like she wasn't even herself, and then like what was the point in her even still being there? So then he tried to get her sent away so that hopefully she could go recover somewhere else, but she refused to go without him. And he didn't want to make her go because he didn't want to be another person locking her up and forcing her to do something she didn't want to do. He blames himself because if he had never come home that night when he had the blood on him and she saw him like that, she never would have died. This is Helena's response to all of that. It says she shifted out from under him enough to sit up. She couldn't look at him without a tearing pain spreading through her chest. She touched him lightly on the forehead. Kane, I'm not your mother. He flinched, opening his mouth to deny, but she continued without letting him cut her off. The eternal flame is not going to hurt me if you fail an assignment. They aren't going to torture or endanger me to punish you. I'm not a hostage. I'm in this war because I chose to be. I'm not fragile. I'm not going to break. Please, believe that about me. This doesn't really work for him though, and when they lay back down to go to sleep again, he ends up just whispering the like, I'm gonna take care of you, I promise I'm gonna take care of you thing again. So didn't soothe him much at all. Helena and Shisio make more discoveries about the nullium, and they are talking about how it could be used, what could be done with it, how could they use it. He thinks you could make like cuffs with it, and she's like, oh, you know what? If you put like a bar through somebody's wrist and then wrapped it, and yeah, that would really work. And then you'd have no resonance going up or down. Scares herself because she's like, why would we ever need that? Nobody would ever need that. And Shisio's like, yeah, but it would work though. So let's keep that in the back burner. So she designed the manacles that end up being put on her in part 1. This book is a prison and I want to be free. As the months go on now, Kane is routinely getting hurt more and more. They're giving him harder and harder jobs, and then also the war is just getting worse. So like on both sides that he's playing, he's getting hurt more and more. She's constantly healing him, and even though at this point he no longer feels like it's her fault and isn't really holding her accountable for any of it anymore, she now feels totally 100% guilty for everything that's being done to him. So she picks up the compulsion and starts whispering to him whenever he's like unconscious while she's healing him that she's gonna keep him safe, and she promises she's always gonna be there to take care of him. The Undying Army drops the first nullium bomb in May, and it's as devastating as it sounds. We now know that the necromancer can harness energy from souls, so Helena starts thinking that surely they can figure out a way to do it too. The next time a patient dies in her arms, she like holds on to them while the like last burst of their energy is coming out, and is able to channel that burst into the piece of obsidian in her hand. When she goes back to her lab to study it, she finds Lila waiting for her and thinks to herself, oh no, the tribunal must have happened, she must be upset, God, now she needs to talk to me. But no, turns out Lila's pregnant. You might be wondering, but Sarah, surely one of the other healers would have noticed that about her when they were healing her, right? Yeah, if she'd been pregnant then. But it's a new problem that happened after they got back from the mission and after they got Luke back. And Lila knows because she's a freaking Vivimancer too. She hid it from everyone because she knew she'd never be allowed to be a paladin if people knew about it. And she's only ever been good at fighting, so she tells Helena, I couldn't be like you, I couldn't be a healer. Helena can't even process this revelation, but I did, and I'm angry. It's so hypocritical of her, like it's actually unreal. I've seen a lot of people talking about how like she's one of the villains of the story, and listen, everybody's really complex. There's layers to everyone. This betrayal is one of the worst ones in my opinion, because Lila is the closest thing, like Luke is her best friend, Lila's the closest thing she has to like a girl best friend. And the fact that the whole time Lila has watched her get bullied, Lila has watched her lose people, Lila has watched her face like serious issues with the people in charge. She's been one too. And she never even told her. The fact that she didn't at least tell Helena, I can't. So Helena immediately assumes, okay, so she must want to terminate said pregnancy because surely she doesn't want a baby in the war. And Lila is like, no, actually, I want to keep it. Luke told me he wants kids and now we're having one, and so I feel like this could be a good thing, maybe, right? They tell Crowther and he agrees. And so they end up like putting Lila in like a holding room in the hospital and pretending she has this like contagious disease so that they can keep her hidden for now. Matron Pace figures it out and agrees to like help Helena. She doesn't make it like known by any means, but she just like casually gives her a book on pregnancy and is like, hey girl, we got to take this seriously if you want it to work out. This is when she also finds out that Helena can't have kids of her own because of the vows that she took. And she's so hurt for her, saying that she was way too young to know what she wanted and she never should have had to make a decision like that in the middle of the war. And we find out then that Helena was 16. Luke is stepping up more and more, and Ylva is kind of getting pushed aside. She gets sicker and sicker and ends up dying very quickly off page. Helena assumes that this new push that Luke feels is because of Ylva's death, because of Soren's death. He's just feeling overwhelmed and trying to like throw himself into winning the war. She's so overrun by the level of destruction that she's seeing and all the exhaustion that she's feeling that she ends up agreeing to be Crowther's replacement for Ivy, so she starts torturing people. This is how we meet Mandel from part 1, so she tortures her, and she practices her animancy on her and starts perfecting the technique of stealing memories. She breaks down so much that she ends up telling Kane everything, so just 100% spilling all of it to him. She tells him all the details about the stone, the obsidian that she started working with, and in his defense, like, I know I've said a lot of shit about him, but he hears all of this and is like, right, okay, well, give me a piece of it, and I will do my best to get my people to research it a little bit. That's crazy. All that other stuff you just said is crazy, but we persist. She's the one that makes his special armor that he's wearing in part 1 when she stabs him and it doesn't work. I loved that detail so much because it's a direct response to her anxiety over him being injured so often, and then he's still wearing it in part 1. While she's at the hospital one day, another bomb is dropped, and this one's closer, and all the windows explode inside the hospital. So everybody's resonance gets muted because when the bomb drops, the dust particles go off in the air, and all of that has nullium in it, and so it affects everybody for like varying levels of time. In the chaos of this explosion, she gets told that she's supposed to be down island helping at the bomb site. She again assumes that it's coming from Crowther, which bothered me a little bit because the last time she did this, it wasn't right. But it's so chaotic that I gave it to her because it's a mess and people are just yelling and screaming. There's so much chaos. Everybody's dying and injured, and she knows that she's the best healer, so she's like, right, okay, cool. She goes down to the blast site and starts helping with the injured, like directly there. No one is coming to help them because it's so dangerous to be that close to the blast site, so they have to clear out the injured as best they can. But it's a disaster, and soon enough the Necrothralls get sent to like clear out the rest of the bodies so they can kidnap them. They gather the dead and quickly get them onto the trucks and send the lorries off. And because she's like the head medic in charge, she feels like she needs to be the last one to leave. So she sends everybody off and plans to like stay with the dying soldiers until the last second because she doesn't want them to die alone. And that last truck, as it's leaving, another lorry comes like barreling down the street, swerving so that they can't escape, and wrecks into them, blowing up with another bomb. Helena wakes with a piece of shrapnel in her chest, and this is how she obviously got that scar from part 1 that she didn't recognize. She makes it back into the hospital fueled on adrenaline and ends up getting attacked by necrothralls. That sharp piece of obsidian is the only thing she has in her pockets as a weapon, so she slices one of them with it and it goes down with her. She wakes up again and isn't dead or kidnapped. Nope, she's just in a bed because they were Kane's necrothralls and they got her for him so that he could heal her. He's so unbelievably angry. Can't stress that enough. He thinks that they clearly did it as punishment for like his mistake. And he's like, you promised me they weren't gonna do that. You promised me, Helena. And she's like, it's clearly a mistake. Something went wrong. I had orders to be down there. What are you talking about? This is when he says that line where he's like, if anything happens to you, if you die, I will kill all of them. They both realize after he says it that now he's definitely too much of a liability and she will actually have to kill him because you can't just say things like that. He accepts it and is like, yeah, you probably should kill me because I'm crazy over you, girl. I'm not gonna get any better. And he asks her to live for him anyway because that's really all he wants at this point. He's summoned back to the city. He had to take her to Spirefell, so that's where she's recovering. And Davies, who is the necrothrall woman that she kept getting messed with in part 1, but she wasn't a bad lady, she just like kept showing up and stuff. He asks her to watch Helena again, and we now know that she was like his mother's lady's maid and basically his nanny, so she like partially raised him growing up. The Resistance lost the ports in this situation, but he doubts they're going to drop another bomb because there was such a big backfire from it and all of the Undying also got affected, so nobody wants to mess with that again. When Kane comes back, she asks him what he did to the medical team because somebody had to have healed her. Like, he couldn't have done all this by himself. And he's like, why would you ask me that question? I know you don't really want the answer. And it turns out that he didn't kill them. He just told them that she was like a torture victim. So they fixed her thinking she was a prisoner of war and then just left, no questions asked. But Helena realizes, like, you would have killed them, wouldn't you, if you had to? And he's like, yes, girl, where have you been? Of course I would have done that. She's like, but I don't want you killing for me. And he's like, oh my good bitch, we are so far past that. All the blood on my hands is yours. This ruins her. And he immediately tries to take it back, but she's like, no, don't even waste your breath. Like, it's true and you should say it. He begs her not to carry it for him, but at this point, they are so disastrously tangled together. The trauma is just one blanket of doom, smothering them both. Like, neither one of you are getting out. About the whole situation with him being a liability, she says, I don't know what to do. I can't ignore a threat to the eternal flame. He sighed, head dipping. I was just angry. You're always angry, but you can't make threats like that or reduce a war like this into a simplistic blame game. And you can't hold the Resistance hostage to control me. And he just like melts and is like, if you die, Helena, I'm done. I won't continue this. I'm tired. I mean it. I won't kill them, but I will be done. You are my terms of service. The contract is void if you die. She still makes him promise to send word back to Crowther because he's an idiot and he just didn't tell anybody that he got her out of the rubble. I think he was kind of hoping that if he saved her, he could just send her off and they could just assume she died and like he could get her out without having to show the body. But she says no. And she's really afraid that if Crowther even thinks that, then they'll kill him. She recovers really slowly because this was a really bad injury and her resonance was messed up, so it's like all bad. Get another small spice scene right before she leaves again, and this is when she realizes that she loves him, but she's too afraid to say it. Valid, because knowing his crazy ass, he'd probably panic. Once she's home, Helena makes a trade with Crowther, and she says that she will help him sort of get around the council and like more and more be Ivy for him, if it means that she can approve the messages and the orders that he sends to Kane from now on. They start making weapons with the obsidian, but they don't tell everybody that it's like death magic that she's using. Now she's even more worried that Kane might accidentally be killed by her own weapons. Also, since she's working with Crowther more and more, some of the people that she tortures die. And that's really weird for her because now she's using her power to kill. She offers to try and fix Titus kind of as a way to like recenter herself in the healing mode. General Althorn died in the bombing, so they need a new general. But Crowther's kind of being a dick about it again. And he's like, I don't think I asked for that. Like, if I need something from you, I'll let you know. And just acting like her skills aren't necessary. Like, the men in this book just... oh, they piss me off so much. But Rhea is gonna let her try, and she's really excited for this opportunity. And then Luke comes in and ruins it by being like, I can't believe you would even let her touch him after what she did to Soren. And he says that they can't trust her anymore, and so Rhea backs out of it and doesn't let her work on Titus, and it just breaks Helena's heart. Cain is gone on a mission for 2 weeks, and when he comes back, it's like immediately obvious that something is very wrong. It was a diplomatic mission back to Hevgos again. Remember, they were all worried about that country turning on them, and they have a lot of people that they could pull into the army, so it's not looking good now that they're teaming up. Also, there are some implications that Cain is being Finnick-Odared by the ambassador from this country. And he's so resigned by it. I'm so glad other people caught it, because when I read it for the first time, I clocked it instantly. I was like, whoa, what does that mean? And then I just let it go because he never explicitly confirms or denies it, but it was weird. And there's another thing that was also weird. We'll talk about that later though. So it was weird enough that I clocked it immediately, and now I've seen other people talking about it. And so like, to me, it's canon. Some shit happened with the ambassador, and I hate that for him. That's awful. He asks for any new orders, and she says no, and that's weird because he's been gone for 2 weeks, so there should definitely be stuff for him to do. So he figures out that she's working with Crowther, and now she's like okaying everything. He gets upset because being overprotective is only supposed to be his thing. Thankfully, she's starting to be more stern with him, so she points out how hypocritical that is, but he throws a temper tantrum anyway because, of course he does. She tries to leave because she's exhausted, and even though she missed him, she's like, I'm not doing this with you. I'm not gonna fight. So he's finally learning how to self-soothe, and he calms himself down and is like, I promise we won't fight. Just come with me. I just want to be with you. Luke is starting to get really reckless. Like, his fevers are still acting up. He's mostly okay, but not quite himself. And the next big battle they have planned is like definitely a suicide mission, but he's like all gung-ho about it and acting like they have to do what they have to do. So Helena plans to build an obsidian bomb, kind of like the Nullium bomb. And despite Crowther being an asshole, he's like, you know what? That actually could be useful. And so they start working on it. The plan is to have Cain plant it at the welcome banquet for this new ambassador in the country and everything, so that they can blow up as many of the Undying as possible and maybe even injure Morrow in the process. But again, at this point, they think that killing him will kill Cain inadvertently. He agrees to help, but only if Helena isn't the one to deliver the bomb, so they make Shicio do it. They have one final night together, and she is begging the universe the entire time to let this not be the end, because it's once again rushed and like stressful and tainted by the fact that like they have this horrible thing to do in the morning. And she's like, one day, can I just love him without there being a time constraint? She tells him that if the bomb works and it doesn't kill him, he has to run away and go south and wait for her, because the resistance is gonna come after him and turn on him. He's like, how long am I gonna be stuck waiting for you? We all know at this point, anxiously attached king, he's not gonna handle that well at all. She knows that they're also gonna turn on her, but he hasn't necessarily put that together yet, or at least voiced it yet. Like, he thinks they're using her, but I don't think he assumes that at the end of the war they will also turn on her. He just thinks they'll turn on him. And now she's accepted her fate, that like she's not gonna get out either. So she just wants him to escape. And then whatever happens to her, but he's like, nice try. I won't be doing that, no. Lila is still safe in her room. The baby is growing and healthy. Turns out Luke knows about it because he broke in to see her at one point and she told him the truth. Helena's even more upset about this because it means that he's been mean to her while knowing that she's the one helping take care of his pregnant girlfriend. When she tries to go and talk to him about all of this, she finds Elaine leaving his rooms, and it turns out that she has been pumping him full of like tons of medicine to like keep his fevers down and keep him under control. This is a thing for Elaine. Like, it's why Helena doesn't like her very much, because she just over medicates the patients. She does whatever they want her to do, not what they need her to do. So she's not a very good healer. Helena realizes in this moment that he's even sicker than they've been letting on, because they've been pumping him so full of stuff that it's not even showing. The day of the bombing, Helena sits with Matron Pace and they talk about Luke and his strange fevers. She's just trying to get more information because she's been so out of the loop with him and so worried about Kane that she wasn't really paying attention since he was pushing her away so strongly. No one told her how bad it was getting, and it's to the point where like he refuses to have men in his room, because like even with Sebastian, like if any men come near him, he starts yelling, "Get him out, get him out." All of a sudden, Helena just puts it all together, realizing that the rescue mission itself had been way too easy. Luke had been alive, but already poisoned. She worries suddenly that he had already been turned into a lich, and they just didn't realize it because they didn't find the device in him, since it might have been coated with Nellium. She's like, oh my god, in my panic I missed it and something's been wrong with him the whole time. She gets an overwhelming feeling that they've missed something and things are about to go horribly wrong. So she grabs Shisio and begs him to go to the offsite lab where they have the bomb, while she races around looking for Luke. Ends up in the streets, like running around the different checkpoints trying to figure out where he's been stationed. And while she's at one of them, a guard comes running up screaming that the Undying have taken headquarters. The commander at the base she's at sends men to look at the other checkpoints, and only a few of them come back. The other men have already been killed and were turned into Necrothralls waiting for them. So they are systematically taking over the Resistance territory. It's very obvious that somebody let something slip from the inside. Luke shows up with Sebastian at this base where Helena's at and is pissed to see her. But she says that it's urgent and it's about Lila and they need to go to a private room because it's about Lila. He agrees and is gonna go by himself with her, but she's like, hold on, bring Sebastian, he's hurt. I'll heal him while I talk to you. Smart girl. She didn't want to be alone with him. Now look, this next part was not supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be very, very serious, but I was giggling. This would be so funny in live action. It felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy moment, kind of. What's wrong with Lila? Luke asked the instant the door was shut and the three of them were alone. Nothing, Helena said. She's fine. Anger lit Luke's face. I just didn't realize you knew about the baby, Helena said, meeting his eyes. Sebastian started. What baby? Luke tensed enough that his armor clicked, but his expression was controlled. He didn't even look at Sebastian. What baby? Sebastian asked again. So then Helena points out the inconsistencies in what Luke's been doing and the fact that he's here with them instead of racing back to try to get Lila out of headquarters. She says, and right this minute, you have every reason to think she's been captured, that she'd be one of the first people they'd kill. But instead of running to her, you're here with me. Luke would never do that. Luke, what have you done? Sebastian was staring at him in horror. Helena asked, who are you? I love this part. It was like watching a curtain being pulled back. One moment, the expression and characteristics were still there, and then Luke sighed and seemed to vanish beneath his own skin. Well, he grinned at them both, a smile like a slit throat. I thought you'd realize months ago, but you're all such fools when it comes to the holdfasts. Help! Yeah, turns out Morrow himself is possessing Luke. He is Cetus, that mythical author that all of like the histories and stuff are written by, that's like next to Orion in the history books. They're brothers. Makes him related to Luke. So he has been harvesting parts of his body to keep himself alive. We knew that because we knew that the immortality takes its toll on him. And now he wants to take Lila's baby and use it as a fresh body to put his soul into. That's why he's so frantic about trying to figure out how to transfer one soul fully to the other instead of just a lich body. And he thinks that having a holdfast heir will do that to him. Morrow has been trying to kill her this whole time because he knew that if she got close enough to Luke, she'd be the one to figure it out. And that's why Luke pulled away from her so intensely. And Helena is devastated because she realizes how wrong she was to think that Luke would leave her behind and abandon her. She knew he was a good friend, and she let all of her like anxiety about the war get the better of her. Sebastian is having none of this, and he immediately bucks up at him and tries to fight. And Morrow hits him with, Sebastian, you're finally going to die protecting a holdfast from a necromancer. and they fight, and it's a brutal fight. Sebastian is winning because Luke is a good fighter, but he's significantly smaller. Sebastian's just a bigger guy, and he's older and more powerful. But Morrow tricks him by making Luke's face be like, Sebastian, I'm sorry. And in that like split second of hesitation, he manages to stab him and kill him. Helena uses her training from Cain, and because Luke is smaller and everything and they're in a confined space, it works to her advantage, and she's able to get the upper hand and get her hands on his head so that she can hopefully use her animancy on him. So she paralyzes him so that he can't get away, and then she's looking into his head and she can see how he has like manipulated Luke's mind and taken it over from within, which is how she learns all of that like officially. This like solidifies her animancy knowledge. We also learned that Luke and Orion were both animancers. So that like compelling aura that Luke had where he could like sway a crowd and make a room fall in love with him just with his smile. Yeah, that was his resonance. She always thought it was his personality, but it is a manipulation tactic from the family line. In this moment, Morrow does say that he's not sure if Luke knew that about himself or not, but that's absolutely what it was. She begs to talk to Luke, offering to tell him how to make the obsidian if he'll just let her see him. He fakes her out the first time, but she's like, that's not Luke. You think I don't know my best friend? Let me see him. So he gives in, and Luke like pops back out of his psyche finally and immediately tells her to run. She apologizes for not realizing it sooner, and he's like, it's okay, it's all right, I understand. He's so sick. Like now that he's himself in his body, he's so unwell. And he tells her that it was Morrow who killed Ylva. Lila didn't see through the trick, so she thought he was really Luke, and that's why she told him about the baby and also the battle. So it was Luke who like helped everybody get inside. Luke gets repossessed and immediately like snatches her by the throat and tries to kill her. So she just automatically stabs with the obsidian knife in her hand. So Morrow pops out again and tries to strangle her, but then he dies, and so he like leaves the body entirely, and it's just Luke dying in her arms. And he's so thankful. Like it literally happens so quickly where Morrow is like strangling her and then his hands fall away and Luke is like, oh, we got him. He's too weak for her to heal, and he tells her that it's all right, but they do need to get out of here because if she's caught with his body, they will never believe her. So he asks her not to tell Lila the truth about what happened. All he wants from Helena now is to try and save Lila and get the baby out of here so that they can survive. He struggles back into his armor and then asks her to raise Sebastian because if he doesn't leave the room too, everybody's gonna know something is wrong. She has to use her necromancy to wake him up, but this time it doesn't bother her as much because she's more careful with it. Luke is sad to see her do it, but it's nothing like the disgust he was showing when Morrow was using him. And again, she just feels so devastated that she didn't realize the truth of his emotions. In this moment where she uses her necromancy, he says, you've always done the worst things for me. And it just makes her realize that like at the end of the day, he is such a faithful friend because they're faithful to him. And so it's mutual, and he really did mean everything he said to all of them. They make it out of the base, and he tells the other soldiers to stay and keep it secure. They don't get very far before he collapses, and Helena and Sebastian have to like carry him into an alleyway, and then he's just sitting there on the ground looking up at like the first rays of dawn. He tells her he's so sorry that he never took her home and that he really, really wanted to see the place where she was from, and then begs her to promise again that she won't tell Lila what really happened. She does, and he dies in her arms, and then she releases her hold on Sebastian and leaves them together in the alleyway. She rushes back to try and get Lila out, which is a crazy thing to do, but it is her last promise to Luke, so I'll give it to her. The city is overrun, and she ends up getting attacked and knocked out by an Undying. Surprise! It's Cain again. She wakes up in his house up in the mountains. He tells her she's safe, but the war is over, and the resistance has fallen. She tells him everything about what happened with Luke, and they just sit in this awful silence, realizing that things are just completely messed up and like there's nothing they can do at this point. Turns out she's been unconscious for days now because when he found her, he knocked her out and put her up in the house and then had to go handle more stuff with the end of the war. And he was like, I came back as quickly as I could, but it's been several days. He wants her to run away, and he's like, the war is over, so now you have to do what you promised, which is leave. It's time for you to go. She says that she won't go without Lila, but if he can help her get her and the baby out, then she will go with them and do whatever he wants. He agrees, and is like, all right, I'll be right back. And he just leaves to go get Lila. But when he comes back with her, Helena knows immediately that something is wrong because he's like manic. He's like, his pupils are dilated, he's flushed, like it doesn't look like himself at all. And she's like, what happened? What did you do? And he's like, oh, you know, I had to blow my cover to get her out for you. She has a full-blown panic attack over this, like literally passes out from how panicked she gets dealing with this information. But he's like, other than the mania, like he's manic, but he's like unnervingly calm about it because now he gets what he wants. He's done fighting because they're gonna know that he did it, so he's in trouble, and she'll be forced to go away for her own safety. So even if he dies, he knows that she's gonna end up being okay. She wakes up again and begs to see Shisio because at this point she knows the level of control she has on Kane, so even though she keeps moving the goalposts for him, he's gonna keep agreeing to whatever she wants if it means that in the end maybe she'll leave. So she's like, I'll never forgive you, okay? I don't understand why you did what you did. This was so reckless, this was so stupid, you're an idiot. Bring him to me. Let me pass on the stuff about the obsidian to him, and that way he can give it to any remaining resistance fighters once I'm gone. Which we already know that Shisio knows this stuff. He agrees, and while he's gone, Helena fights through the medicine that he gives her to frantically make one more bomb. When he comes back with Shisio, she still pretends to be like out of it. Kane is annoyed because her taking this moment with Shisio to like talk to him is making things go awry with his plan. And she's like, listen, why don't you just take Lila away first, okay? He's stung by the fact that she clearly wants him to leave. And she pretends to be super cold and flat, doing exactly the behaviors that he used to do to her back to him, so that it wounds him enough that he will leave. She nearly tells him that she loves him because she doesn't mean anything that she's saying. She is mad at him for blowing his cover. She's not this mad at him, okay? And in the end, she just ends up saying, just go. I'll be waiting for you. This part here is where that weird other moment about the ambassador happens. Like while they're talking about how he got Shisio, how he got Lila, all of that, he mentions that he knows his way around the ambassador's suite. Icky. Don't like that. Alone with Shisio, she finishes the bomb and explains that she's gonna go blow up the lab where Lila was being held so that the paper trail leading back to Kane is destroyed. It's the last thing she can do to help him at this point, and if it's not done, he will absolutely be killed. Shisio is the sweetest boy alive, and so he offers to go in her place, admitting suddenly that he is the Emperor's brother. And so if they capture him, they probably won't kill him because he could ransom himself and hopefully get more money and stuff from the Emperor in order to get him back. But she knows that she's gonna have to use necromancy to plant the bombs, so it has to be her. As she's leaving, she says, take care, Shisio. If I don't come back, if you ever see Kane, tell him that never mind. I imagine he knows. She does, however, leave a note as well, just FYI. While she's sneaking back up underneath the headquarters stuff through the tunnels, she runs into Crowther, except he's dead and a necrothrall. Turns out Ivy also turned on them, ratted everybody out, and she's the reason why they got up through the tunnel system and were able to overtake headquarters so easily. She did all this because the necromancer said that he had Sophia and could give her back. Helena's real disgusted by this, but Ivy's like, girl, I don't know what to tell you. They were gonna die anyway. At least this time I made it quick. She plants the bombs with the help of some necrothralls and manages to blow up the lab, but she can't get away fast enough, so she ends up being caught in the blast. She fights like hell to get back to Kane because while she's like stumbling, like deaf, half blind from everything, she knows in her heart that like if she doesn't make it back to that room and he finds out about this, he's gonna lose his mind. She still ends up getting caught though because she's not strong enough to run away. In this like scuffle, Lancaster catches her first and she manages to get away from him. Then the old resistance general shows up and he's a lich now being piloted by Kane's father. That's how he recognized her in part 1. They managed to break her hands and knock her out. When she wakes up again, she's in the cages with Matron Pace, watching all the other resistance people die. Morrow shows up with Luke's body. He uses his necromancy to make him beg and pretend to ask for forgiveness, but Morrow says he's unworthy and then smashes his head in on the steps of the school. Pace is knocked out trying to keep order inside the cages, and Helena is beside her with her broken hands, so she doesn't know if she died or not. She can't really check on her, but she sits with her hoping that she's dead because what's gonna come next for them is obviously worse. They're gonna kill everybody, but while she's being moved for transport, Mandel comes and like snatches her up. That's how she ends up being taken to the holding tanks instead of killed with the others. In transport, she realizes that she cannot let herself be kidnapped. Like if they figure out who she actually is and what she's done, she could put Kane in horrible danger. So she's trying to hide her memories away the way he explained to her. She goes into the tank awake and aware of everything, which is the scariest, most claustrophobic thing I can imagine. And now this part right here, guys, she tried to scream, but all that came out was a weak, uneven whimper. Her body grew colder and colder, and her lungs spasmed as her panic used up the limited oxygen coming through the mask. Her chest began aching and burning for air. She kept trying to breathe, but there was nothing to breathe. She was relieved when she passed out. It was better than being awake. Something burning hot jolted her back to consciousness. She'd forgotten where she was and panicked as it all rushed back. The tiny enclosed space beneath the surface in the dark, not enough air, and she couldn't move. The burning came again, cutting her panic short as she tried to place where the sensation was coming from. She knew that feeling. Her hand, her left hand was burning. The ring, her heart stalled. Kane. He'd come back and found her gone. She told him she'd be waiting and she wasn't there. The ring burned again and again and again. He was looking for her. He'd come for her. He always did. But she could not think about it. Ugh! She had to forget. If she remembered and was interrogated, Kane could not be found. Some of her last conscious thoughts are, if Kane found her, he'd understand. She could wait. And then we have the repeated line that she was telling herself in part 1, which is the hold on, you promised you wouldn't break thing. This whole time in part 1 with her, we thought it was Luke telling her that. We thought the will to live that had been instilled in her was from Luke. No! It was Kane the whole time! Oh my god! Okay, that's part 2 of Alchemised. I hope you guys enjoyed. Part 3 is significantly smaller and should not take me nearly as long to work on. At this point, I've got a couple more days until this goes out to you guys, and I am sorry for the wait, but as I said in the very beginning of this, it's been rough. Here's my Halloween costumes, though. If you want to see silly videos I made, go check out my TikTok, link in the description. I've got all my socials linked down below if you want to connect anywhere. I'm probably most active on Tumblr. But yeah, I think more people have read and reviewed the book now, so let me know down below how you guys are feeling. I talked a lot about my feelings for Kane in this one because he does annoy the shit out of me. Like, as much as I like him, I'm reading Divine Rivals right now, and the differences between like him and Roman, I like Roman so much more. Let me know down below how you guys are feeling about the book. I know I've said a lot about my feelings and stuff, but I'm gonna hold my like full review and everything until I'm completely done, and we'll talk about that in part 3. So that's gonna do it for today. I hope you guys are well. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you so soon. Have a good one. Bye!